While I was busy with my work as a materials manager, I got an email that really shook me up. It was from Michael, and he calmly told me that he was in love with someone else and wanted to start a new life with her. He also said he was taking the fancy car we bought together, even though it was under my name. I begged him to think it over, but he didn't listen. Then he disappeared with his new girlfriend, leaving me with a big debt. It was a total shock for me, Ava, at 33, and our little family of 3, including our smart 12-year-old son, John. John's cleverness was evident from an early age, as he would have deep conversations and give thoughtful opinions on articles, which was quite different from Michael's inconsistent behavior. Even though Michael hadn't held down a stable job, he somehow managed to keep money coming in for the past 4 years, encouraging us to make lasting memories as a family. This led us to buy a camper van worth $388,000. However, because Michael couldn't meet the financial requirements, I ended up responsible for the loan. On the day we were supposed to get the camper, Michael sent an email saying he was taking it, leaving me to deal with the financial burden alone. When I confronted him, he confessed to having an affair and said he was leaving to start a new life. He even mentioned divorce, something we had argued about before. But now it was really happening, catching me completely off guard. Finding out about Michael's betrayal and then him disappearing, leaving me with a huge debt and no way to contact him, was devastating. I tried to reach him, but it was useless, and he never sent the divorce papers he promised. On top of that, we were still dealing with the $38,000 loan. In the midst of all this chaos, John's understanding of the situation made it clear just how much Michael leaving had affected us emotionally and financially. This wasn't just a tough situation, it was a harsh wake-up call to reality. I had to figure out how to move forward after being betrayed, all while making sure John was okay and dealing with this overwhelming debt. After dinner, John came up to me looking worried, his young face showing concern. "Mom, what's up? You haven't been eating much lately. Are you okay?" His worry made me stop for a moment. "I'm probably just a bit tired," I said, trying to brush it off. But John, wise beyond his years, said, they say when people lie, they look up to the right. Lying isn't good, Mom." Then he cautiously asked about Dad's absence, saying Dad hasn't been around for 2 days. Did something happen? His directness surprised me, and I felt like I had to tell him the truth about what was going on with our family. John reacted maturely, almost like he knew something was wrong even before I said it. He seemed to understand the situation with a wisdom beyond his age. Even though I could tell he was upset, I couldn't hide my stress in the following days. At work, during a training session, I suddenly couldn't stand up. I was overwhelmed by emotions and collapsed, feeling like I was being swallowed by darkness, while my colleagues expressed their concern around me. Waking up in a hospital, I was told I needed some serious medical tests. It hit me hard. Lying in that bed, hooked up to an IV, I couldn't help but cry. When John rushed in, looking really worried, I had to quickly wipe away my tears. He was scared, asking, "You're gonna be okay, right? You're not gonna die?" I reassured him that I was going to be fine, touched by his bravery and how grown-up he was acting even though he was just a kid. His concern when he mentioned his teacher calling about me being in the hospital reminded me of how strong I needed to be. Even though the doctors told me it was worse than I thought, having John by my side gave me a new determination to get better. I knew I had to recover, not just for myself, but for both of us. Going through all of this showed how strong our connection was and how we could face anything together with bravery and determination. When the doctor confirmed my worst fears and said I needed urgent surgery for a serious illness, it was like everything became a blur of medical appointments and treatments. As I recovered, a month had passed since Michael left. When I got home, I found a letter in the mailbox that made my heart sink. A demand for the car loan payment, which was supposed to be automatically deducted. The shock only got worse when I checked our bank account. What used to have $445,000 now had just $29.90 left. Michael had taken almost all our savings, leaving us in a really tough spot without the camper van. I felt even more hopeless knowing I couldn't sell it to make up for the money we lost. Seeing how upset I was, John stepped in to help in the kindest way possible, suggesting he could start delivering newspapers and look for online jobs to pitch in. His willingness to take action was like a ray of hope, pulling me out of my sadness. Now's not the time to give up, I told myself, feeling encouraged by his positivity. Together, we came up with a plan to get the camper van back, using a clever idea. We could track its location using the GPS on John's phone, the one we got for him. It was a plan born out of necessity and John's smart suggestion, giving us a new direction. It was something we hadn't thought of before, offering a glimmer of hope in what felt like a hopeless situation. With the GPS app, we could keep an eye on where the van was, a crucial first step in our mission to get back what was rightfully ours. Going through this tough time had not only shown how strong we were but had also brought us closer together, all working toward the same goal. Worried about Michael possibly getting away with excuses, John's confidence was like a shining light. "Don't worry, Mom. I've got it covered," he said with a smile that put me at ease. I was amazed by his forward thinking and independence. Even when I was vulnerable and in the hospital worrying about everything, John had come up with a plan that was so smart. I couldn't have thought of it myself. His initiative showed not only how clever he was but also how well he understood what was going on. Even with Michael's new relationship, feeling empowered by John's clever plan, we decided to confront Michael, turning our tough situation into a learning experience for him. "We're stronger when we're together, and now it's time for us to take action," I said confidently, feeling like nothing could stop us with my son by my side. Just 3 days later, I got a call from Michael, sounding desperate for help with a police investigation related to our report of the stolen van. Without wasting any time, John and I rushed to Forest Park, where we found Michael looking stressed and surrounded by police officers. When we got there, I asked for a private chat and sent the police away for a moment. Michael seemed uncomfortable under our gaze and the stares of others around us. He quickly invited us into the van, where his girlfriend was sitting defiantly, but her presence didn't matter as much as what we needed to discuss. "Why are the police involved, Michael?" I asked, genuinely confused. "It's simple," I explained. "The van, which you thought you could just take, was reported stolen. It's under my name, not yours." Michael's belief that marital disagreements were exempt from the law was shattered by the reality of his actions. This wasn't just about getting back what was rightfully ours, it was also about showing Michael the consequences of his betrayal and recklessness. Our careful planning and John's smart thinking had completely changed the situation, proving that even when someone betrays you, staying strong and united can lead to justice and empowerment. Michael thought he could get away with breaking the law because he thought marital issues were outside its reach, but he was wrong. "Remember the divorce you wanted? That means we're not legally connected anymore, so you can't use a car that's registered in my name without my permission," I explained, correcting his misunderstanding. John had figured this out too, showing wisdom beyond his years. Michael tried to say he was just borrowing the car, but I wasn't buying it. "Is that right?" "Well, I need my car back now, please," I said, holding out my hand for the keys. Michael reluctantly handed them over, realizing he couldn't argue with the truth. Then John, a mix of curious and disappointed, asked, "Why did you choose her over us?" Michael stumbled over his words, while his girlfriend Sophia tried to justify their affair. But John's serious tone shut her down, insisting on an answer from Michael. When pressed, Michael reluctantly explained how their affair started and grew, leading to his decision to leave with Sophia, who was now pregnant, and the van. "Why take the van?" I asked, already having an idea thanks to the GPS app we had on both our phones for safety after John's hiking incident. This tool unexpectedly gave us updates on Michael's location, showing us he was misusing the van. This was a big moment where our preparation and John's clever thinking made a difference, showing the importance of taking responsibility and the power of technology in uncovering the truth. Finding out that John had faked getting lost on our hike just to get a cell phone amazed me. His actions, driven by a feeling that something wasn't right with his dad, led to a plan to keep track of Michael. "You're quite the strategist," I said, impressed by his cleverness. I was amazed, even though I joked about how John seemed to predict what would happen. When confronted with John's honest words, Michael couldn't say anything to defend himself. On the other hand, John's grown-up way of speaking and standing firm in what he believed made me feel proud as a mother and determined to make things right. The fact that Michael had taken $45,000 from our account, money I had saved before we got married and during all the times when Michael couldn't keep a steady job, was especially upsetting. Realizing that divorcing Michael was a relief showed just how much he had betrayed me. Even though Michael tried to make it seem like taking the van and the money was just a small argument between us, I was determined to take legal action. "Should I call the police now?" John asked, ready to dial the number on his phone and bring in the authorities. Sophia, who had been listening in, panicked as things escalated, especially with her own parents arriving, angry and ready to confront her for her part in everything. When she tried to leave the van, her parents stopped her, yelling loudly. "I'm sorry, please don't be mad," she begged, hoping for some sympathy that wasn't there. I had taken the step to tell her parents about what was going on, prompted by John's visit to Michael's workplace while I was in the hospital. He had told them what was happening with our family, leading to an investigation that brought Sophia's parents into the picture. This confrontation wasn't just about exposing Michael and Sophia's lies. It showed how far John and I would go to make things right and protect our family. It proved how important it is to take responsibility for your actions and to stand up to those who try to deceive you, no matter how complicated things get. I sat down with Michael and recounted the whole messy story to them, explaining how we ended up in this situation. Things took a surprising turn when I questioned the timing of Sophia's pregnancy, pointing out some inconsistencies that suggested the baby might not be Michael's. Michael was shocked by this revelation, staring in disbelief as the truth sank in. Sophia tried to deflect, but tensions rose, leading to a heated argument between her and Michael as they each tried to blame the other. Their fight showed just how deep their deception went, and everyone there saw it. As the night went on and the police arrived with their flashing lights, Michael went back and forth between denying everything and admitting he was wrong, begging for forgiveness and promising to change. But John made a wise observation that real change is rare for those who keep making mistakes on purpose. I was determined to make sure Michael faced the consequences of his actions, showing that we wouldn't let him get away with what he'd done. We were committed to handling the aftermath with dignity and making sure justice was served. The $45,000 loss was just the beginning. Michael agreed to pay child support each month, and his wages were garnished to cover these expenses and others. It was the start of a long journey to make things right. Selling the camper van not only got rid of the loan, but also symbolized leaving the past behind, allowing me to focus on healing and the future. As time passed, I regained my strength, thanks to my renewed dedication to my job and the constant support from John. He took on household chores with a maturity beyond his years. Despite the challenges, this experience strengthened our determination to move forward. We were inspired by the lessons learned and the justice served. And through it all, we made sure John knew that integrity and resilience are important qualities to have when facing tough times, so he could keep chasing his dreams with confidence.
"You ungrateful little bastard." The words were out of my mouth before I could stop them. Eli's face twisted in anger. "Who do you think you're talking to?" he spat back. "You're not my mother. But I raised you as my own." I cried out in frustration. For 18 years I had given this boy everything, my love, my time, my care. And this was the thanks I got. Across the dining table, my husband Derek sat motionless, his eyes darting between us. "You didn't raise me, you just latched onto my dad and pretended to play house." Eli sneered. His words pierced my heart like an icy dagger. I struggled to keep my voice steady. "Is that what you truly think? That I was just pretending all these years?" Eli shrugged. "It doesn't matter now anyway. I'm moving out and you're no longer required as a substitute mom." His casual, dismissive tone inflamed my anger. I waited for Derek to jump in, to defend me after everything I had sacrificed. Instead, he just cleared his throat and said softly, "Eli's right, dear. He's an adult now. Things will be different from now on." His placid agreement stunned me into silence. After a strained pause, Eli shoved back his chair and stormed out. Derek calmly took another bite of steak, avoiding my gaze. I sat there, shaking with emotion I dared not reveal. The final pretense had been torn away. I had given everything to this family, and they had thrown it all back in my face without a second thought. I stayed up all night, thoughts swirling feverishly as I lay next to Derek's softly snoring form. Marrying him had been my fairy tale, the handsome CEO sweeping me off my feet after a difficult divorce. I gladly took on the role of adoring wife and loving stepmother. But now I saw the facade for what it was. Derek's charm had blinded me to his emotional distance. He lavished me with affection in public, but behind closed doors remained aloof and preoccupied. I brushed it off, not wanting to seem needy or insecure. As for Eli, despite my efforts, he had never warmed to me. He was always polite yet coolly indifferent, seeing me as an intruder. In my desperation to hold this family together, I had silenced my own doubts and painful truths. No more. The veil had lifted, and I saw the situation for what it was, a sham, a farce, an illusion I had maintained with my blood, sweat, and tears while they silently resented me. Never again. The pale light of dawn crept across our bedroom floor. Derek slept soundly still, unaware of the storm brewing within me. I slid out of bed and dressed silently, then slipped out the front door into the cold morning air. My breath came out in icy puffs as I strode briskly down the quiet street. The neighborhood slowly awoke around me, oblivious families starting their Saturday morning routines. But my life would never be the same. Last night had been my breaking point, the catalyst that finally sparked my anger and resolve for retribution. For too long I had silently suffered Derek's emotional distance and Eli's subtle hostility. It was time they learned actions have consequences. No more Mrs. Nice Gal. If Derek wanted to cast me aside, like used goods, he had no idea who he was dealing with. And Eli would realize just how much he owed me, whether he liked it or not. My mind raced with possibilities. I had access to all of Derek's accounts. I could cripple him financially. Surely he had secrets that wouldn't stand the light of exposure. And if they thought I would just fade quietly into the background, they were dead wrong. I would make them pay. The morning sun crept higher as I walked, thawing the frost on the neighborhood lawns. My breath had stopped clouding the air. The icy knot in my chest had dissolved, replaced by a burning determination. By the time I returned home and crept back into bed beside Derek's gently snoring form, the seeds of a plan had begun to take root in my mind. My old life was over, but my new one was just beginning. The next few weeks passed in a blur. On the surface, I maintained the facade of the perfect wife. I continued performing my wifely duties, keeping up the house, cooking meals, supporting Derek's career, but it was all an act. Inside, I had changed. The rose-colored glasses were off, and I saw my marriage for what it was, a sham. Derek remained his usual charming yet distant self, unaware of the growing storm within me. One evening after dinner, I casually asked him about work. "Oh, just the usual office politics and deal-making," he replied breezily. "Don't you worry your pretty little head about it." He gave me a patronizing pat on the hand. I used to find his evasiveness mysteriously alluring. Now it infuriated me. What was he hiding? I soon found out. Organizing his home office one day, I uncovered credit card bills and bank statements revealing massive withdrawals to casinos and luxury hotels. So this was how the great Derek Jennings was spending his time and money, while I budgeted every grocery store trip. Confronting Derek would be useless, I realized. He would just charm his way out of it. I needed to gather more evidence and hit him where it really hurt, his reputation. I reached out to Lena, Derek's ex-wife and Eli's biological mom. We met for coffee, and her resentment toward Derek soon became clear. "He pushed me out of Eli's life, turned my own son against me," she said bitterly. "I've been silenced and discarded one too many times." I nodded. "You and me both, but not anymore." I confided my discoveries about Derek's unscrupulous finances and infidelities. Lena's eyes widened, then narrowed vengefully. "Let's bury him," she said coldly. In the weeks that followed, we secretly gathered information on Derek's shady business deals and affairs. He had no idea what was coming. One evening, I was tidying Derek's study when I heard hushed voices downstairs. Creeping to the balcony, I saw Derek murmuring intimacies into his phone. "Of course I miss you, darling. We'll be together again soon, I promise." Rage boiled inside me as I realized this was how he spoke to his mistress, not me. I vowed he would pay for every sweet deception. The final straw came during Eli's graduation party planning. "We should invite Marla's family," I suggested. "It's been so long since they've seen Eli." Derek dismissed the idea. "It'll already be crowded enough. This party is for Eli and our close friends. Your family will just make things uncomfortable." His callous exclusion of my family, after all I'd done for Eli, ignited my fury. The time had come to bring Derek's house of cards crashing down. Lena and I would plan the graduation party together, I decided, but it would be far from the celebration Derek expected. I would give the performance of a lifetime, lulling Derek into complacency. And then, in front of his family, colleagues, and community, I would expose his lies and decadence for all to see. Let's see how charming you are when this party ends in ruin, Derek. You cast me aside, now it's my turn. He's going to regret the day he crossed us. Lena slammed her coffee cup down with such force I worried it might crack. Her eyes blazed with anger. We were at our usual hidden booth in the back of the Daily Grind, plotting our revenge on Derek. You're right, I said. He thinks he can just use people and toss them aside. It's time to teach him a lesson. Lena and I were allies now, by our desire for retribution. I had been hesitant to contact her at first. Derek had ensured she was pushed out of his and Eli's lives long ago, but swallowing my pride, I reached out. To my surprise, Lena harbored the same hurt and resentment toward Derek. We quickly bonded over our stories of silence and disregard. He's humiliated both of us for too long, Lena said bitterly. I've dreamed of this day, finally making him pay. I nodded. I have everything we need to ruin his reputation and career. We'll expose his lies publicly when it will hurt the most. Lena smiled vengefully. Let's do it at Eli's graduation party. Derek will have all his colleagues, clients, and fake friends there. It'll be perfect. We laughed as we plotted our revenge. It frightened me how good deception felt, after years of being the loyal, dutiful wife. But Derek's actions had hardened my heart. He would learn you reap what you sow. What about Eli? I asked Lena. He worships his father. It's time Eli learns the truth, Lena said bitterly. Derek has poisoned him against me all these years, but he can't hide his true colors anymore. I thought of Eli's cold dismissal of me, how he had called me a substitute mom. He would finally see I was the one who truly cared for him, not his toxic father. Over the next weeks, Lena and I meticulously planned each moment of the graduation party reveal. I gathered irrefutable evidence of Derek's unethical business deals, lavish spending, and repeated infidelity. Lena reached out to others Derek had wronged over the years, former partners, jilted lovers, ruined lives he left in his wake. On the surface, I played the oblivious, dutiful wife preparing for Eli's celebration, but it would be Derek's reckoning. The night before the party, Derek joined me in bed, full of his usual charm. You've outdone yourself planning tomorrow, dear, he said, kissing my cheek. It will be the perfect day for our Eli. I forced a smile. I'm so proud of our son. Our son. I almost laughed at Derek's blindness. He had no idea what was coming. For years I had swallowed the bitter pill, playing happy family while my soul withered. No more. Derek and Eli would finally see me unleashed. After Derek drifted off, I lay awake trembling. Could I go through with such calculated humiliation and destruction? Derek's actions had driven me to this point, but did he deserve such cruelty? No. I steeled myself. He deserved this, and more. I would channel all the years of silence and disregard to finally speak my truth. By the time the party ended, Derek's facade would be shattered. He had lit this fire himself. Now it was time for everything to burn. The day had finally arrived. Eli's graduation party loomed before me, the culmination of weeks of meticulous planning and preparation. Today, Derek's web of lies would unravel for all to see. I woke early, a knot of anticipation and nerves twisting inside me. Derek was already gone for last-minute party errands. The house echoed with emptiness. In just a few hours, our immaculately decorated backyard would be filled with Derek's closest family, friends, and business associates. He had spared no expense, intent on displaying his ideal family and status. It was the perfect stage for his downfall. As the caterers began arriving, I retreated to Derek's study to collect myself. On the desk sat meticulously organized folders containing every sordid detail of his financial deceit and infidelity. Lena and I had pored over them for weeks, preparing for this day. Now, they waited like ticking time bombs, poised to detonate Derek's life. I ran my hand over the folders, hesitating. Could I truly unleash such destruction, even if deserved? Shaking my head, I steeled myself. I had come too far to turn back now. Voices floated in from outside. The first guests were arriving. I took a deep breath and stepped out to play the glowing host, as if this were just another celebration. Within the hour, the party was in full swing. Guests filled the yard, mingling and laughing in the afternoon sun. Derek beamed, playing the consummate host. He kissed my cheek. Perfect as always, my dear. Eli will be so pleased. I smiled tightly. Let's hope so. Across the yard, I caught Lena's eye. She gave me a subtle nod. It was time. As Derek turned to mingle, Lena began ushering our hand-picked guests inside. Former business partners Derek had misled and ruined, jilted lovers carrying his love letters, colleagues aware of his unethical actions. I followed them to the living room. When Derek entered, still smiling, he froze. The color slowly drained from his face as he took in the waiting crowd. "What's going on?" he stammered. "An intervention," I said coldly. Closing the double doors, I faced him alone. "They're here to finally reveal the truth about the man hiding behind this facade." Derek's composure shattered. "Marla, you can't possibly," he spluttered. Ignoring him, I turned to our silent witnesses. One by one, guided by Lena's probing questions, they came forward. They spoke of Derek's callous manipulations, his financial misdeeds, his cutthroat duplicity masked by charm. Each revelation landed like a hammer blow, exposing Derek's craven true nature concealed beneath his perfect image. "You can't do this," Derek yelled, panicked. "This is absurd. I'll deny all of it." His voice trailed off lamely. I almost pitied Derek as his web of lies unraveled before my eyes. But I also felt a vengeful satisfaction at finally speaking my truth. Voices sounded outside. The party guests were looking for us. The show wasn't over yet. I turned to Derek, my fury uncontrolled. "You look so surprised. Is this not the adoring, obedient wife you expected? I wonder what our guests will think." Before Derek could respond, I threw open the doors, unveiling the shocked faces within. Derek stood framed in the doorway, exposed and broken. Step one was complete. Now to bring the whole charade crumbling down. The night air was still, not even a breeze disturbing the trees. I stared out my bedroom window into the darkness, unable to sleep. The graduation party loomed tomorrow, the culmination of weeks of secrecy and planning. After tomorrow, my life would never be the same. Was I truly ready to unleash this nuclear option, exposing Derek so ruthlessly? I wavered between electric anticipation and gnawing self-doubt. In the bed beside me, Derek slept peacefully, unaware of the reckoning barreling his way. I envied his blissful ignorance. What would it be like, I wondered, to be so certain in your path that no nagging voices gave you pause? But I had chosen my path long ago, when Derek and Eli made it painfully clear my years of devotion meant nothing. The time had come to speak my truth, whatever the cost. Tomorrow, when Derek's colleagues, clients, and peers arrived, they would bask in his charm and success, the perfect picture of achievement. But at my signal, it would all come crashing down. His facade would crack, his misdeeds and callousness exposed for all to see. Lena and I had prepared for every contingency and outcome. Derek's business partners and friends would abandon him, his reputation in tatters. The community that once revered him would finally know the man he truly was beneath the polished veneer. And Eli, my dear stepson Eli. He would watch his father's fall from grace, the heroic image Derek had instilled since childhood shattered forever. Perhaps then he would finally see me for who I was, not the substitute mother he callously dismissed. Perhaps we could begin anew. They say living well is the best revenge. But sometimes you need to force the world to open its eyes. Derek and Eli had quietly rejected me for years, content to cast me out with polite indifference. No more. I would reject them first, spectacularly and without mercy. My absence would cut deeper than any loving words could heal. As the sky lightened to gray, I rose silently and dressed, moving through the hushed early morning shadows. Derek never stirred. Outside, the neighborhood was just beginning to wake. A sprinkler hissed to life, a dog barked, a car backed slowly from a driveway. In a few hours they would all congregate cheerfully at our home, then depart in shock once the veil was torn away. These familiar streets seemed foreign, the houses of neighbors I'd known for years now looming ominously. I wondered if I would ever walk this path again after today. But I continued on, my course set. The time for doubt and reflection was past. Whatever consequences came, I was ready. My old life of silent servitude was already dead. By day's end, Derek's would be too. The caterers would arrive in an hour, then the guests, then Derek's judgment. As the day awoke around me, I steeled myself for the role of a lifetime. When I returned home, I found Derek humming cheerfully as he prepared for the party. So oblivious, I thought. He pecked me on the cheek, smiling. "This is it, my dear, Eli's big day." I swallowed hard and mustered a smile. Yes, it is. The show was about to begin. This was it, the moment I had planned and prepared for. Time seemed to slow as I surveyed the unsuspecting party guests mingling and laughing in the yard, Derek charming them all effortlessly. They had no idea the bomb about to detonate. My pulse pounded as I made my way to the microphone and tapped it gently. Conversations faded as all eyes turned to me. Beside me, Derek beamed proudly. "Welcome, friends," I began, infusing warmth into my voice. "We're so honored you could join us today for this celebration of our son Eli's graduation." A smattering of applause. I nodded graciously. "Before we bring out the man of the hour, I wanted to say a few words about family." I turned to Derek, taking his hands in mine. His smile wavered slightly. "Family is everything, isn't it, dear?" I said meaningfully. "We do anything for those we love, but sometimes people aren't quite who we think they are." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Derek's eyes searched my face nervously. I gave his hands a squeeze before dropping them. "You all know Derek as a pillar of our community," I continued. "A loving father, devoted husband, successful businessman. But today, you will finally know the truth." Chaos erupted. Partygoers gasped and exclaimed in disbelief as Derek grabbed the microphone. "Marla, what are you doing?" he hissed desperately. I silenced him with an icy stare. Then I began systematically detonating the truth. I unveiled Derek's exorbitant spending and trips to casinos. I brought forth jilted lovers, still clinging to his promises of fidelity. Former business partners described his shady financial dealings. With Lena's help, I exposed every sordid misdeed and betrayal Derek had concealed behind his facade. With each revelation, Derek crumbled further. He yelled fruitless denials, but the damage was done. I barely recognized myself, so calmly and ruthlessly destroying my husband before the community we knew. But after years of polite silence, it was my time to speak. The coup de grace came when Derek's colleagues presented irrefutable evidence of unethical and illegal activity, sparing no detail. A hushed horror fell over the crowd. "Well, Derek," I asked sweetly, "do you have anything to say?" He gaped wordlessly, ashen and broken. In minutes, I had decimated the sterling reputation he had cultivated so carefully for years. Satisfaction coursed through me. But this was only the beginning. His professional life would soon follow. Clients abandoning him, deals collapsing, lawsuits pending. The board would have no choice but to remove him. I had thought I would feel regret in this moment, destroying so much. But all I felt was a dizzying liberation at finally stepping out from the shadows and driving the knife in myself. It was done. As the crowd's shock shifted to outrage, I calmly walked inside, shoulders back and head high. Let Derek reap the whirlwind. My work here was done. In the weeks following the party, Derek's life collapsed exactly as Lena and I had engineered. His business associates fled like rats from a sinking ship once word of his unethical practices spread. Deals evaporated and clients abandoned him. Investigations were launched, lawsuits filed. The board, scrambling to save the company's reputation, had Derek removed as CEO in a unanimous vote. Just like that, his professional life was in ruins. Personally, he fared no better. Evidence of his chronic infidelity became public knowledge. Half his social circle immediately distanced themselves. The other half only remained in morbid fascination, eager for new gossip about his downfall. Derek desperately tried salvaging his reputation, swearing his mistakes didn't reflect the real him. But the damage was done. He had shown his true colors too many times. No more charismatic excuses or deflections. Derek finally had to own the minefield he had created. And Eli, my dear stepson Eli, he initially refused to believe the reports about his father. But as irrefutable evidence mounted, the painful truth sunk in, shattering Eli's spotless image of the man he worshipped. He appeared at my door one evening, eyes downcast and shoulders slumped. "You were right about him," he muttered. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." My heart broke and swelled all at once. I had only wanted Eli's eyes open to his father's duplicity, but seeing his loss of innocence was bittersweet. "The past is done," I said gently. "All we can do is learn and move forward." Eli nodded, blinking back tears. I embraced him in the maternal comfort he had resisted for so long. Another unexpected visitor soon arrived. Derek's ex-wife Lena, the first woman Derek had callously discarded. Her eyes blazed with long-held fury as Derek answered the door. "Did you think I'd just let you destroy me and walk away?" she spat. "You took my life once, but no more. Now you have nothing and no one. Derek's voice shook with barely controlled rage. "Haven't you ruined me enough already?" He growled. Lena just smiled coldly. "This was a long time coming. Remember that." She turned and strode away, back straight and head high. I watched her go with newfound respect. We had both broken free of Derek's control and been avenged. Whatever came next for him, he had brought it on himself. In the aftermath, I waited to be crushed by guilt for destroying Derek so ruthlessly, no matter how justified. But all I felt was freedom. Freedom from years of polite silence. Freedom from being endlessly patient and dutiful while my soul withered. Derek had lit the fuse long ago. I had simply ensured his detonation was seen far and wide. He was finally forced to reckon with the man he truly was, not the charming illusion he projected. For that, I had no regrets. In the months after Derek's downfall, I slowly rebuilt a new life. With Derek removed as CEO and our reputation destroyed, I filed for divorce and settled into peaceful independence. The first weeks felt strange, rattling alone in the large house that had once boasted raucous family dinners and celebrations, but the solitude soon became comforting. I realized how heavily the facade of perfection had weighed on me, how it had stifled and drained me for years, requiring constant maintenance. Now I answered only to myself. I decorated solely based on my tastes, cooked experimentally without criticism, enjoyed quiet nights without the pressure of mandatory family activities. I breathed easier without the perpetual knot in my stomach worried over Derek's detachment or Eli's subtle hostility. The community gossip mill churned out endless fodder dissecting my supposed obliviousness to Derek's misdeeds. I ignored it all. They knew nothing of my years of silent suffering. Let them speculate. I owed no one an explanation. To my surprise, Eli became a regular visitor. Behind his father's back, he had done some soul-searching and realized I had supported him all these years while Derek manipulated from a distance. "You gave me so much, and all I did was push you away," he said remorsefully during one visit. "I was so focused on Dad's approval, I refused to see the truth." I saw real regret in his eyes. "The past is done," I reassured him. "All we can do is learn from our mistakes." Eli nodded. "Can we start over? I'd really like it if," he hesitated, "if I could call you Mom again." My breath caught, tears springing to my eyes. I held him close. "Of course, dear boy." Starting over would not erase the pain we had caused each other, but Eli was trying, as was I. For now, that was enough. Another ray of light. Lena and I remained close after bonding as vengeful allies. The solace of a friend who truly understood was healing for us both. We shared wine on my back patio, laughing over family photos. "To new beginnings," I said, raising my glass. "To freedom," Lena replied firmly. We clinked our glasses in a silent promise. No more wasted time or energy on those who would dim our light. The possibilities stretched endless before us. I received the divorce papers on a sunny April morning. I signed them with a sense of calm finality, then delivered them to the courthouse myself. That evening, for the first time in years, I watched the sunset alone from my back porch, without harboring bitterness or regret. The past was finally laid to rest. My soul was lighter than I could ever recall. I was halfway through a bottle of champagne celebrating with myself when the doorbell rang unexpectedly. I opened it to find Derek standing stiffly in the fading light. We stared at each other in silence. "What do you want?" I finally asked wearily. Derek shifted awkwardly. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," he mumbled. "For everything." I considered him for a long moment. Then I gently closed the door. Some things could never be salvaged. But that was okay. The possibilities still awaited. I returned to the porch, refreshed my champagne, and toasted the sunset once more.
The crystal champagne flute trembled slightly in my hand as I watched my husband transfer $2.4 million from my account with a casual tap on his phone. The gathered faces of his family glowed with satisfaction in the warm lighting of our dining room, like cats who'd just cornered a particularly juicy mouse. My name is Paris, and I've spent the last 5 years being the perfect, dutiful wife to Lawrence Blake, the kind who smiles and nods when her mother-in-law suggests she's spreading herself too thin at work, the sort who pretends not to notice when her husband helps manage her finances because "You're so busy with your career, darling." To Paris! Lawrence raised his glass, his perfect white teeth gleaming, the best earner in the family, and the most trusting, his father Alfred chuckled, swirling his bourbon. Thank God Lawrence knows what he's doing with money, unlike some people. I forced my lips into the same placid smile I'd perfected over years of family dinners. I'm just grateful to have such a supportive family to help me. Oh, sweetie! Sylvia, my mother-in-law, reached across the table to pat my hand. We all know how overwhelming these things can be for someone like you. Remember that disaster with the investment portfolio last year? The disaster she referred to was me questioning why Lawrence had liquidated my tech stocks without consulting me. I'd learned to stop asking such questions openly. Speaking of investments, Lawrence announced, I've moved Paris's bonus to our joint management account. We've got some exciting opportunities lined up. Kayla, his sister, raised an eyebrow. The full amount? Of course, Lawrence winked at her. Paris trusts me completely, don't you, honey? I nodded, taking a small sip of champagne. Completely. The conversation drifted to Alfred's latest yacht purchase, but I kept count in my head. 3, 2, 1. My phone buzzed quietly in my lap. I didn't need to look at it to know what the notification said. But I did anyway, careful to keep my expression neutral as I read, Transfer complete. Irrevocable trust to 467 2.4 E. Everything okay? Lawrence asked, noticing my glance at the phone. Just work, I said softly. Nothing important. You work too hard, Sylvia interjected. A wife should focus more on her husband's needs. When I was your age, I let her words wash over me, nodding at appropriate intervals while my mind calculated the next steps. The transfer was clean, untraceable. Geoffrey had made sure of that. More champagne, dear? Alfred's voice cut through my thoughts. Please. I held out my glass, watching the bubbles rise. Each one felt like a tiny victory. Later that night, after the family had left and Lawrence was snoring softly beside me, I slipped into my home office. The clock read 2:17 a.m. as I logged into my secure email. Transfer confirmed, all documentation in place. Proceeding to phase 2? Geoffrey's message waited for me. I thought about Lawrence's smirk as he moved my money, about Sylvia's condescending pats, about Alfred's dismissive chuckles. 5 years of careful documentation, of playing the willing fool, of building my case piece by piece. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for just a moment before I typed, Confirmed, execute phase 2. As I closed the laptop, my phone lit up with a text from Valerie. You okay? I smiled, a real smile this time, not the practiced one I wore at dinner. Better than okay, I wrote back. The fish took the bait, all of them. Standing at my office window, I watched the city lights twinkle below. Tomorrow, Lawrence would wake up thinking he'd secured another victory over his naive wife. He'd probably brag about it to his father, maybe even to that bartender he thought I didn't know about. Let them laugh, let them think they've won. After all, the best trap is the one your prey walks into willingly, believing they're the predator. I touched the small recording device hidden in my necklace, the one I never took off, the one Lawrence had given me on our anniversary. For memories, he'd said. If he only knew how right he was. The champagne from earlier still buzzed pleasantly in my system, but it wasn't the alcohol making me feel light. It was the knowledge that after tonight, everything would change. The pieces were all in place. I slipped back into bed beside my husband, listening to his steady breathing. Sweet dreams, darling, I whispered, knowing they would be his last peaceful ones for a very long time. 6 months earlier, I sat in Geoffrey's corner office, watching rain streak down the floor-to-ceiling windows while he reviewed the trust documents one final time. You understand the gravity of what you're setting up here? He peered at me over his reading glasses. Once the money goes into this trust, Lawrence can't touch it. But if he discovers you've been moving assets without his knowledge... He won't, I said, smoothing my skirt. He stopped checking the fine print on anything I signed years ago. Too boring, he says. Valerie, my financial advisor and oldest friend, cleared her throat. "Show him the recordings, Paris." I pulled out my phone and played the video from last Christmas. Lawrence's voice filled the office. "Just get her to sign here. She never reads this stuff anyway. Too many big words." Laughter. God, I love having a wife who trusts me completely. Jeffrey's expression hardened. "How long have you been collecting evidence?" 3 years, 2 months, and 14 days. I switched to another recording. This one's from the day he forged my signature on the beach house mortgage. The video showed Lawrence and his sister Kayla in his home office. "Paris doesn't need to know," he was saying. "She'd just worry her pretty little head about it. Besides, what's hers is mine, right?" "Jesus," Jeffrey muttered, scribbling notes. "And you're sure about the surveillance equipment in your house?" "Donovan handled the installation personally. Everything's untraceable." Valerie leaned forward. "Tell him about the accounts." I pulled out a folder and spread documents across Jeffrey's desk. I've been moving small amounts, nothing noticeable, into separate accounts for the past 2 years. Lawrence thinks I'm just bad at math when the numbers don't quite add up. And the trusts. 3 of them, all irrevocable, all under my maiden name. The paperwork looks like standard investment portfolios to anyone who doesn't know what to look for. Jeffrey whistled low. "You've been busy." "I learned from the best." I smiled without humour. The Blakes taught me everything about hiding money. They just didn't realise I was paying attention. A knock at the door made us all jump. Jeffrey's assistant poked her head in. "Mr. Jensen, your next appointment is here. Give me 5 minutes, Sarah." He turned back to me. "You're playing a dangerous game, Paris. If this goes wrong—" "It won't." I gathered my papers, because they'll never see it coming. To them, I'm just the trophy wife who got lucky in marketing, the cash cow they can milk whenever they want. Valerie touched my arm. "You don't have to do this alone." "I'm not." I squeezed her hand. "I have you two, and Donovan. Speaking of which," I checked my phone. "He should be finishing the last camera installation right now." As if on cue, my phone buzzed. "All set," Donovan's text read. "You won't believe what I found in Lawrence's desk." I showed the message to Jeffrey, who immediately reached for his phone. "Don't tell me. Let me guess. More forged documents?" "Only one way to find out." I stood up, gathering my belongings. I should get home before Lawrence does. He likes me to be there when he arrives. Something about a wife's proper place. "Paris?" Jeffrey's voice stopped me at the door. "Be careful. Men like Lawrence, they don't take kindly to losing control." I thought about the bruise on my wrist from last week when I'd questioned a strange withdrawal from our joint account. I know exactly what Lawrence is capable of. That's why this has to be perfect. Back home, I found Donovan's package waiting in my private mailbox. Inside was a USB drive and a single sheet of paper. My hands shook as I read it. A second mortgage on our primary residence, dated 3 months ago. My signature looked perfect, too perfect. I pulled up the banking app on my phone and checked our mortgage payments. Sure enough, they'd nearly doubled, but Lawrence had explained it away as a tax adjustment. My phone buzzed again. A text from Lawrence. "Big news! Dad's letting me in on a new development deal. Need to move some money around. You trust me, right, baby?" I typed back immediately. "Of course I trust you. Whatever you need." Then I forwarded screenshots of the forged mortgage document to Jeffrey and Valerie, adding, "Found our smoking gun." Valerie responded first. "Holy shit! This is better than we hoped. He's going to lose everything." "No," I wrote back. "They're all going to lose everything." I heard Lawrence's key in the door and quickly deleted the messages. Time to become the perfect wife again, at least for a little while longer. "Honey, I'm home," he called out. "Where's my beautiful, trusting wife?" I took a deep breath, pasted on my practice smile, and went to greet my husband. "Right here, darling. right where I always am. The morning after the dinner party, Lawrence's panic call to his father woke me at 6 a.m. I lay still, pretending to sleep while he paced our bedroom. "It's gone, Dad. The whole transfer. It's just gone." His voice cracked. "No, I checked every account. Twice." I shifted slightly, letting him know I was waking up. He immediately switched to a whisper. "I'll call the bank when they open. Maybe it's just a glitch." He paused. "No, she hasn't noticed. You know Paris, she probably doesn't even remember how much her bonus was." I stretched and sat up, rubbing my eyes. "Everything okay, honey?" Lawrence's face transformed instantly into a reassuring smile. "Just some work stuff, baby. Go back to sleep." "Is it about the transfer? I got a weird notification last night." His eyes sharpened. "What kind of notification?" I reached for my phone, making a show of scrolling through messages. "Something about a failed transfer. I figured you'd handle it." "Show me." He practically snatched the phone from my hands. "I think I deleted it." I bit my lip, the picture of confusion. "Should I be worried?" "No, no." He kissed my forehead. "I'll take care of everything. Why don't you make us some coffee?" In the kitchen, I heard him making more calls. By the time Sylvia arrived for our weekly family breakfast, her idea of keeping me in line, Lawrence was barely containing his hysteria. "Have you called the fraud department?" Sylvia stirred her tea aggressively. "Paris, darling, you really should be more careful with your banking passwords." "My passwords?" I blinked innocently. "Well, obviously someone got into your account." She exchanged looks with Lawrence. "Unless you did something with the money?" I let my lower lip tremble slightly. "I wouldn't know how." "Exactly." Sylvia patted my hand. "This is why we keep telling you to let Lawrence handle the finances. You should stick to simpler things, dear. It's clearly beyond you." I ducked my head to hide my expression, using the moment to activate the recording device in my necklace. These conversations were gold for the emotional abuse documentation. "Mom's right," Lawrence said, his tone patronizing. "Just let me handle this. You focus on your little marketing projects." My little marketing projects had earned me that $2.4 million bonus, but I just nodded meekly. The doorbell rang, right on schedule. "That must be Kayla," Sylvia said. "She's bringing those investment papers for Lawrence to sign." I excused myself to answer the door, using the moment alone to send a quick text to Donovan. "They're all here. Start recording." Kayla breezed in, designer handbag bulging with documents. "Paris, you look tired, stressed about the money." "What money?" I forced a nervous laugh. "Lawrence says everything's fine." Of course it is." Kayla's smile didn't reach her eyes. "We're family. We take care of our own." In the dining room, she spread papers across the table. I pretended to focus on refreshing coffee cups while watching her slip a power of attorney form into the stack. My hidden camera caught everything. "Paris," Lawrence called, "could you give us a minute? This is boring business stuff." "Actually," I hesitated, playing my part perfectly. Could I sit in, just to learn? The look that passed between the siblings spoke volumes. "Better not," Kayla said smoothly. "Wouldn't want to overwhelm you." I nodded and left, but not before catching Lawrence's whispered words to his sister. "She's getting curious. We need to move faster." In my home office, I connected to the hidden cameras. The footage was crystal clear. Lawrence and Kayla signing documents with practiced efficiency, including one with a remarkably good forgery of my signature. My phone buzzed, Donovan confirming he had everything recorded. I forwarded the live feed to Jeffrey with a single question. "Enough?" His response came quickly. "More than enough, but there's something else you should see." The attachment he sent made my blood run cold. a joint power of attorney form naming Kayla as co-executor of Lawrence's business interests. The date was 3 years ago, right when the financial manipulation had started ramping up. My supposedly uninvolved sister-in-law had been pulling strings all along. Another text from Donovan. Audio caught Lawrence telling Kayla, and I quote, "Paris is too stupid to notice. She actually thinks I love her." I closed my eyes, letting the words sink in. Not because they hurt. I'd stopped feeling pain from their insults long ago. No, I was savouring them. Every recorded word, every forged signature, every condescending comment was another nail in their coffin. Opening my eyes, I touched the necklace camera and whispered, "I think it's time for phase 3. From downstairs, I heard laughter. My husband and his family, probably congratulating themselves on another successful manipulation of poor, naive Paris. Laugh while you can, I thought. The show's about to begin. Jeffrey's office felt different this time, more like a war room than a law firm. Papers covered every surface, and Valerie was connecting her laptop to a large screen on the wall. "The freeze on marital assets goes into effect at midnight," Jeffrey said, sliding documents across his desk. "Once you sign these, Lawrence won't be able to touch anything that's still in joint accounts." My hand didn't shake as I signed. He's going to lose his mind. Let him. Valerie pulled up a series of spreadsheets. "Look at this. We found something interesting about that failed real estate project from last year." The numbers on screen made my stomach turn. "That's a lot of zeros." "Alfred used your social security number as a guarantor," Jeffrey explained. "Without your knowledge or consent, of course. Classic identity theft." I thought back to our first date, Lawrence taking me to that fancy French restaurant. He'd seemed so genuine then, ordering in perfect French, making me laugh with stories about his boarding school adventures. "Paris?" Valerie's voice pulled me back. "We don't have to do this today." "Yes, we do." I straightened my spine. "Show me everything." For the next hour, they walked me through the evidence: forged signatures, unauthorized loans, recorded conversations of Lawrence bragging about how he manipulated me. Each piece of evidence felt like another brick in the wall between who I used to be and who I'd become. My phone rang. Sylvia's number. I put it on speaker. "Paris, dear, are you coming to the charity committee meeting? We're discussing the annual gala." "I can't today, Sylvia. I'm meeting with—" I caught myself just in time. "With a client." "Oh." Her disapproval crackled through the speaker. "Well, I was just telling Mrs. Harrison about you. Poor thing, she was worried about her daughter working too much. And I said, just look at Paris. Brilliant career, but no time for family. No children yet, you know." I met Valerie's outraged eyes across the desk. "Thank you for thinking of me, Sylvia." "Of course, dear." "Oh, and Lawrence mentioned some confusion with the accounts. Don't worry your head about it. Men are just better with these things." After I hung up, Valerie exploded. "That manipulative Save it," I cut her off. "Just add it to the emotional abuse file." Jeffrey cleared his throat. "Speaking of files, there's something else you need to see." He handed me a thick folder. "We found these in the record subpoena." Inside were photos, dozens of them. Lawrence at restaurants with different women. Lawrence on his father's yacht with someone who definitely wasn't me. Lawrence leaving hotels, checking into resorts, always with company. "The oldest ones are from 6 months after your wedding," Jeffrey said quietly. I stared at the images, remembering all the business trips, the late meetings, the weekends when he was helping his father with investments. "Are you okay?" Valerie touched my arm. "I'm fine." I closed the folder. I've known for years. There's a reason I started recording everything. My phone buzzed again. A text from Lawrence. "Where are you? Mum says you skipped the committee meeting." "With clients," I wrote back. "Sorry, honey. You know how work gets." Don't work too hard, baby. Leave the heavy lifting to me. Jeffrey watched me read the message. You know, most people would have snapped by now, lost their cool, confronted them. Most people don't spend 5 years planning their revenge. I stood up, smoothing my dress. Is everything ready for the gala next week? Valerie nodded. The donation is set up in your maiden name. All the paperwork is clean. Perfect. I gathered my things. Lawrence wants heavy lifting. Let's see how he handles the weight of his own lies. As I reached the door, Jeffrey called out, Paris, there's one more thing. He hesitated. Alfred used your information as guarantor on multiple properties if this goes public. His entire real estate empire could collapse, I finished. I know. Are you sure you want to take it that far? I thought about Sylvia's constant undermining, Kayla's silent complicity, Alfred's patronising dismissal of everything I'd achieved. But mostly, I thought about Lawrence's face when he transferred my bonus, so certain of his control over me. They took everything I was and twisted it into what they wanted me to be, I said. Now they get to watch everything they built collapse around them. Walking to my car, I got another text from Lawrence. Dinner with Mum and Dad tonight. Wear that blue dress I like, the one that makes you look sweet. I texted back a heart emoji, then called Donovan. I need you to do something for me. That evidence about Alfred's identity theft? Send copies to every board member of his company. Anonymous email, untraceable. Timing? Right in the middle of dinner tonight. I smiled, starting my car. And Donovan, make sure you're recording when the calls start coming in. Time to put on that sweet blue dress and watch the show. The annual Blake Foundation Gala sparkled with wealth and pretension. I'd chosen a red dress tonight, not the demure pastels Lawrence usually insisted on. The whispers started the moment I walked in alone. Where's Lawrence? Did you hear about the missing money? Is that really Paris? She looks different. Sylvia intercepted me at the champagne table, her smile brittle. Darling, I thought we agreed you'd arrive with the family. Did we? I sipped my champagne. Must have slipped my mind, like that board meeting Lawrence had to rush to this afternoon. Her eyes narrowed at my tone. Before she could respond, the event coordinator approached with a tablet. Ms. Lane, we need your signature for the donation. Lou Marley? Sylvia's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose. Don't you mean Mrs. Blake? No, I smiled, signing with a flourish. The donation is under my maiden name. The coordinator beamed. $100,000, so generous. We'll announce it during the presentations. Sylvia's face went pale. 100? Paris, does Lawrence know about this? Why would he need to? I met her gaze steadily. It's my money. She grabbed my arm, manicured nails digging in. What game are you playing? Mrs. Blake, a reporter materialized beside us. Sarah Martinez from the Financial Times. I'd love to discuss the Foundation's recent activities. Sylvia's grip loosened. This isn't the time. Actually, I cut in, I'd be happy to chat, Sarah. Shall we find somewhere quiet? Before Sylvia could object, I let Sarah lead me away. Through the crowd, I spotted Lawrence arriving, his face thunderous. Our eyes met across the room. Paris! He strode toward us. A word, now. I'm in the middle of an interview, honey. I turned back to Sarah. You were asking about the Foundation's finances. Lawrence grabbed my elbow, steering me toward a side room. Excuse us, please. Once the door closed, his charm vanished. What the hell do you think you're doing? Supporting charitable causes. I straightened my dress. Isn't that what you always wanted? A wife who contributes to society? With my money, I corrected softly. My bonus, my donation. His laugh was ugly. Is this about the transfer? You're really not as clever as you think, Paris. No. I pulled out my phone, showing him the trust account balance. Are you sure about that? The colour drained from his face. How did you? The same way I documented every forged signature. I stepped closer. Every unauthorized loan, every time you and your family laughed about how stupid I was. You're bluffing. Check your email. There's a video compilation you might find interesting. I particularly like the part where you tell Kayla how easy it is to manipulate your trusting wife. A knock interrupted us. Kayla poked her head in, face ashen. Lawrence, Dad needs you. Now. The board members are calling about some emails. I moved toward the door. Don't worry, I'm leaving. But Lawrence? I paused, touching my necklace. You might want to be careful what you say next. You never know who's listening. Back in the ballroom, the donation announcements had begun. I watched Lawrence and Kayla hurry to where Alfred stood, phone pressed to his ear, face purple with rage. And a special thank you to Ms. Paris Lane for her generous personal donation of $100,000, the announcer's voice rang out. The crowd applauded. Sylvia's champagne glass shattered on the floor. Ms. Lane? Sarah the reporter appeared at my elbow. About that interview, why don't we meet for coffee tomorrow? I suggested. I have quite a story for you. Paris! Alfred's voice boomed across the room. What have you done? Heads turned, phones came out. Perfect. Me? I kept my voice light, carrying in the sudden quiet. I'm just a simple woman who's bad with money. Isn't that what you always said? You vindictive little... Alfred, I cut him off. You might want to take that conversation somewhere private, unless you'd like to discuss identity theft in front of all these witnesses. He froze. Behind him, Lawrence was frantically typing on his phone, probably discovering his accounts were frozen. Oh, and Sylvia. I turned to my mother-in-law. About what you told Mrs. Harrison. You're right. I don't have children. I was too busy documenting your family's fraud. The room erupted in whispers. Phones kept recording. Tomorrow, the Blake family's carefully constructed facade would be all over social media. As I walked out, Sarah called after me. Ms. Lane, one question, why now? I paused at the door, making sure my voice would carry. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just about getting even, it's about getting free. The last thing I heard was Kayla's voice. Lawrence, the SEC is on the phone. The divorce papers hit the news cycle before Lawrence even received his copy. I watched the story break on my laptop while sitting in Jeffrey's office, sipping coffee as the chaos unfolded. Marketing executive files for divorce amid financial scandal. Blake Foundation under investigation. Identity theft and fraud, a family's web of deceit. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since dawn. Sylvia had left 12 voicemails, each more hysterical than the last. The latest one played on speaker. How dare you, after everything we've done for you? Lawrence is devastated. Devastated about the divorce or the SEC investigation? Jeffrey interrupted, ending the playback. Because he should be more worried about the latter. A knock at the door preceded Valerie's entrance. You need to see this. She held up her tablet, showing a live feed of Lawrence outside his office building, surrounded by reporters. No comment, he was shouting, trying to shield his face. These allegations are completely false. Mr. Blake, a reporter thrust a microphone forward. Can you explain why your wife's social security number was used to secure loans without her knowledge? Or why the foundation's charitable donations don't match its reported income? Another called out. My client has no comment, Kayla appeared, playing lawyer. These are private family matters. Is it true you forged documents? Someone yelled. Did you steal your wife's bonus? I turned off the feed. How's Alfred handling it? Not well. Jeffrey checked his phone. The SEC froze most of his accounts this morning. That clause in your prenup, the one about retained earnings. It's giving them probable cause to investigate everything. Sylvia's having a meltdown on social media, Valerie added. She's claiming you manipulated them, if you can believe the irony. My phone buzzed again, a text from Lawrence. You think you're so smart? You have no idea what you've started. Before I could respond, Geoffrey's assistant rushed in. Turn on the news, now. The office TV flickered to life, showing Alfred at a hastily arranged press conference. He looked older than I'd ever seen him, his usual confidence shattered. These accusations against my family are outrageous, he was saying. Paris has always been treated as one of our own. Is that why you used her identity to secure fraudulent loans? A reporter shouted. Alfred's face reddened. Those loans were perfectly legal. We have copies of the documents, another voice called out. The signatures don't match. Care to explain? The camera caught Kayla trying to end the conference, but Alfred pushed her aside. Now see here. Mr. Blake, what about the Foundation's missing funds? Or the offshore accounts? Is it true your son manipulated his wife's finances? Alfred stumbled, clutching his chest. The feed cut off as medical personnel rushed forward. Heart attack? I asked quietly. Geoffrey nodded. Mild one, according to my sources. He's stable. Karma's not wasting any time, Valerie muttered. My phone lit up with a call from Sylvia. For the first time I answered. Are you happy now? She shrieked. Alfred's in the hospital because of you. No, Sylvia, he's in the hospital because his lies caught up with him, just like yours will. We gave you everything, made you part of our family. You made me your puppet, I corrected. There's a difference. Lawrence loved you. Lawrence loved my money, and you loved having someone to look down on. A new voice cut in. Lawrence had grabbed the phone. You want a war? Fine, I'll destroy you. Check your email, I interrupted. There's a video you should watch. Pay attention to the part where you discuss forging my signature with Kayla. The SEC found it particularly interesting. Silence. Oh, and Lawrence, remember last month when you laughed about me being too stupid to understand investments? I understood enough to record everything. The door opened, and Geoffrey's assistant entered with a document. My lawyer scanned it and gave me a thumbs up. In fact, I continued, I understand enough that I just got control of your company's voting shares. Check the prenup clause about retained earnings again, carefully this time. You can't. I can. I did. And Lawrence, I'm calling a board meeting tomorrow. Don't bother attending. You're fired. I hung up as he started shouting. Ready for the next phase? Geoffrey asked. I nodded, thinking of all the times they'd dismissed me, belittled me, treated me like a pretty fool. Send in the forensic accountants. Let's see what other secrets the Blakes have been hiding. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Kayla. Please, they're still your family. I typed back 4 words before blocking her number. Family doesn't steal souls. Then I straightened my shoulders and headed for the door. I had a board meeting to prepare for. The mediation room felt too small for the amount of tension it contained. Lawrence sat across the table, flanked by his lawyer and Kayla. Sylvia perched behind them, her usual perfectly coiffed appearance showing signs of strain. Alfred's chair remained empty. He was still in the hospital. Let's begin, the mediator said, shuffling papers. Ms. Lane has requested this session to present evidence before proceeding with legal actions. Evidence of what? Lawrence scoffed. That she's a vindictive. Geoffrey hit play on the laptop. Lawrence's voice filled the room. Just forge her signature like usual. Paris trusts me completely. She's such an idiot. Kayla's face went white. Sylvia grabbed the table for support. There are 6 hours of similar recordings, I said quietly. Would you like to hear the part where you discuss using my social security number for fraudulent loans? Or maybe the conversation about embezzling from the foundation? You recorded private conversations? Lawrence's lawyer sputtered. That's perfectly legal in our state, Jeffrey interrupted, especially given the criminal activities being discussed. More videos played. Lawrence and Kayla plotting financial manipulations. Sylvia coaching Lawrence on how to gaslight me more effectively. Alfred bragging about using my identity for his real estate schemes. "Turn it off," Sylvia whispered. "Why?" I met her eyes. "Isn't this what family does? That's what you always said. Family takes care of its own." "We did take care of you," she snapped. "No." I stood up, my voice shaking slightly. "You broke me down piece by piece, made me doubt myself, treated me like a commodity you could use and discard." "Paris," Kayla started. "Don't." I cut her off. "You were the worst. You watched it all happen, helped him forge my signature, pretended to be my friend while helping them steal everything I earned." Jeffrey placed a thick folder on the table. "This contains documentation of every fraudulent transaction, every forged signature, every instance of identity theft. The SEC has copies. So does the FBI." "You're bluffing," Lawrence said, but his voice cracked. I pulled out my phone and played one last recording. Lawrence in bed with his latest mistress, laughing about how he'd broken me, made me the perfect docile wife. "That's from last week," I said softly, "in case you're wondering how long I've known about the affairs." Tears streamed down Sylvia's face. "We're your family. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't break each other down. Family doesn't—" My voice broke, and for the first time, I let them see real emotion. Family doesn't make someone feel worthless just because they can. The mediator cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should review the proposed settlement." Jeffrey distributed copies. I watched their faces as they read the terms. "This is impossible," Lawrence's lawyer protested. "You can't demand full financial restitution, public admission of fraud, resignation from all company positions." I ticked off the points. "Oh, and Sylvia, the foundation goes to new management. No more using charity for tax evasion." "You'll destroy everything we built," Sylvia cried. "No, you did that yourselves. I'm just showing everyone the truth." Lawrence stood up suddenly, his chair crashing backward. "You think you've won? You're nothing without us. Nothing." "Mr. Blake," the mediator warned. "I made you," Lawrence shouted. "Everything you are is because of me." I stayed seated, calm. "No, Lawrence, everything I am is despite you." "Sign the papers," Jeffrey said firmly, "or we take this to court. Your choice." Kayla spoke up for the first time. "We should sign." "Traitor!" Sylvia hissed. "No, Mom, we're the traitors. We did this, all of it." One by one they signed. Lawrence's hand shook so badly he tore the paper. As they stood to leave, I spoke one last time. "Lawrence?" He turned, hatred burning in his eyes. "I was never clueless," I said softly. "I just let you reveal who you really were without my interference." "You'll regret this," he snarled. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." I smiled, not my old submissive smile, but something sharper. "Actually, I know exactly what you're capable of. That's why I recorded everything." After they left, Jeffrey touched my shoulder. "You okay?" I looked at the signed papers, thinking of all the years I'd spent playing the perfect wife, documenting every abuse, building my case, piece by piece. "I'm free," I whispered, and for the first time in years, it was completely true. My phone buzzed, a text from Valerie. "SEC just announced formal charges. It's over." No, I thought, it's just beginning. The autumn breeze carried the scent of coffee as I set up for my workshop in the downtown community centre. Women filtered in slowly, clutching notebooks and wearing expressions I recognised all too well. The careful mask of someone living in financial fear. "Welcome to Protecting Your Assets, a woman's guide to financial independence," I began, watching their faces. "My name is Paris, and I'm here to teach you what I learned the hard way. A young woman in the front row raised her hand. Are you the same Paris from the Blake Foundation scandal? Yes. I smiled. That's actually why I started these workshops, because I'm not the only woman who's been financially manipulated by people she trusted. My phone buzzed, a news alert about Lawrence. He'd pleaded guilty to reduced charges in exchange for testimony against his father. The photo showed him leaving court, gaunt and grey-haired, nothing like the polished man who'd once controlled my life. My husband says I don't need my own account, a quiet voice said. I looked up to see a woman about my age, twisting her wedding ring. He says it shows I don't trust him. I'm Haley, she continued. Something just felt wrong. So I came today. Trust your instincts, I told her, remembering my own ignored warning signs. They're usually right. The workshop ran over time, women sharing stories, asking questions, taking notes on how to protect themselves. I gave them Jeffrey's card, watched them input Valerie's number into their phones. Afterward, Haley lingered. What happened to them? Your husband's family? I pulled up the morning's news on my tablet. Alfred, convicted of multiple fraud charges, serving house arrest due to health issues. Sylvia, divorced and selling designer bags online to make ends meet. Kayla, disbarred and working as a paralegal in another state. They lost everything, I said simply, just like they tried to take everything from me. Weren't you scared? Terrified, but being scared and staying quiet was worse than being scared and fighting back. My phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. I recognized Kayla's writing style immediately. I know you probably delete these, but I need to say it again. I'm sorry. I chose the easy path instead of the right one. The guilt eats at me every day. Please forgive me. I showed Haley the message. See this? Abusers often ask for forgiveness when they face consequences, but forgiveness doesn't mean letting them back in. What will you do? I deleted the message without responding, just like all the others. I'll keep teaching women how to protect themselves. That's better than forgiveness. The community centre director poked her head in. Paris, there's a reporter here. Says she's doing a follow-up story on financial abuse survivors. Send her in. I turned to Haley. Want to stay? This might help. Sarah Martinez hadn't changed much since the gala. She set up her recorder as we talked about the workshops, the women I'd helped, the signs of financial abuse everyone should know. Last question, she said finally. Do you regret any of it? The recordings, the evidence gathering, the public exposure? I thought about Lawrence's face when he realised I'd outsmarted him, about Sylvia's shock when her perfect family image shattered, about Alfred's empire crumbling under the weight of his own lies. No, I said honestly. Revenge didn't feel like I expected. It wasn't hot or satisfying. It felt like finally being able to breathe. After Sarah left, I found a new text from Valerie. Trust Fund is helping another domestic violence survivor relocate today. That's 23 women so far. I smiled, remembering the day I'd converted my revenge money into a foundation that actually helped people. The irony of using the Blake's stolen funds to protect other women wasn't lost on me. Haley touched my arm. I'm going to open my own account tomorrow. Good. I handed her my card. Call me if you need backup. Walking home, I passed the building that used to house the Blake Foundation. New signs advertised a domestic violence resource centre. Inside my apartment, I opened my journal, not to document abuse anymore, but to record victories. Today's entry was simple. Helped another woman find her voice. The best revenge isn't destroying your abusers, it's making sure they can never abuse anyone else. My phone buzzed one last time, Lawrence's number. I blocked it without reading the message, then turned back to my workshop notes. Tomorrow would bring new women seeking help, new stories to hear, new battles to fight. But tonight, in the quiet of my own space, on my own terms, I was exactly where I needed to be, free, strong, and ready to help others find their way out of the darkness I'd escaped. That wasn't just revenge. That was justice.
The white runner beneath my feet feels like a path of thorns. Each step down this cathedral aisle sends tiny daggers through my silk-wrapped toes, but I keep my chin high and my smile fixed, the way Mother taught me. My name is Valeria, and I'm about to destroy my family. The string quartet plays Pachelbel's canon, but all I hear is the thundering of my heart. 200 pairs of eyes follow my measured steps. Society's finest, gathered to witness what they think is the society wedding of the year. Mother made sure of that. Every invitation personally curated, every detail orchestrated for maximum impact. "Stand straight, dear," she had whispered this morning, pinning the antique veil to my hair with fingers like ice. "Today, you make us proud." If she only knew. I catch a glimpse of my sister Lana in the front row, resplendent in champagne silk. Her smile doesn't reach her eyes. It never does. 3 nights ago, she cornered me in the conservatory, her manicured nails digging into my arm. "Don't you dare mess this up," she had hissed. "Everything we've worked for depends on you playing your part." I remember nodding, docile as always. Poor, quiet Valeria, the family doormat, the one who never fights back. The altar looms closer. Milton stands there in his tailored tuxedo, watching me with those unreadable gray eyes. Most people think he's cold, distant. They don't know what I know. They haven't seen him hunched over financial records at 3 a.m., connecting the dots that would lead to this moment. "You look beautiful," Mother calls from her front row seat, loud enough for everyone to hear. Always performing, always crafting the perfect image. I flash back to last week's dress fitting. "You've gained weight," she had snapped, pinching my waist. "No dinner tonight. We can't let out this dress again." The memory makes my spine stiffen. 23 years of similar moments cascade through my mind. Missed meals, canceled plans, monitored phone calls, all to shape me into their perfect puppet. "Almost there, sweetheart," Father whispers beside me. He's been a ghost in his own home for years, drowning his guilt in scotch while Mother and Lana spun their web of lies. I almost pity him. The priest smiles benevolently as we approach. Behind him, an enormous stained glass window throws rainbow patterns across the altar. So much beauty, so much ceremony, all to mask the ugly truth. I spot Caden in the 3rd row, his laptop bag by his feet. Inside it sits a backup of everything we need, just in case. Milton extends his hand to help me up the steps. His touch is steady, grounding. 2 months ago, we were strangers forced into an arrangement. Now we're conspirators. "Dearly beloved," the priest begins, his voice echoing through the vast space. "We are gathered here today." Mother dabs at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Always the grieving martyr, even now. Even after everything she's done. I think of the documents hidden in my bouquet. The paper trail of fraud, the shell companies, the forged signatures. 2 months of secret investigations, midnight meetings, and careful planning have led to this moment. Lana shifts in her seat, checking her phone. Probably making sure the offshore accounts are ready. She always was the detail-oriented one. That's why she never suspected I'd learned from watching her all these years. The priest drones on about love and commitment. If he only knew the real commitment being made today, my commitment to truth, to justice, to finally standing up. Mother catches my eye and gives an approving nod. She thinks she's won. Thinks her youngest daughter has finally submitted to the family's grand design, the perfect society wedding, followed by access to the Francis fortune, culminating in the biggest con they've ever pulled. But this time, I'm not walking blindly. This time, the puppet has scissors. My bouquet feels heavy with its hidden contents. In less than 10 minutes, everything will change. 23 years of careful manipulation will crumble in front of Vancouver's elite. Mother's mask will crack. Lana's schemes will unravel. The priest turns to Milton. Do you take this woman? I draw a deep breath. The air tastes like roses and revenge. This isn't the story of a blushing bride or a family's triumph. This is the story of a girl who learned to pick the lock of her pretty cage, who discovered that the key to freedom was hidden in plain sight, in spreadsheets and bank statements, in whispered phone calls and deleted emails. Mother always said I was too quiet, too obedient. She never realized she was teaching me her greatest lesson: patience. The moment of truth approaches. I have something in my hands they don't know about, and it's going to change everything. 2 months earlier, I sat in our mansion's fading library, pretending to read while Mother paced the Persian carpet. The evening light caught the worry lines around her mouth, lines no amount of Botox could hide anymore. The Francis family has agreed, she announced, stopping directly in front of me. Milton will marry you this summer. I dropped my book. What? Don't gape, darling. It's unbecoming. Mother perched on the antique settee, smoothing her Chanel skirt. This is wonderful news. The wedding will save us all. Save us from what? My voice cracked. And why wasn't I told about any of this? Lana materialized in the doorway, her heels clicking against the hardwood. Because you'd only mess it up if you knew too soon. You always were terrible at keeping secrets. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, Mother cut in. Do you think I enjoyed watching our assets dwindle, our name losing its shine, the country club whispers? I stood up, my hands shaking. I'm not marrying a stranger to fix your social standing. Lana laughed, that sharp, cruel sound I'd grown to hate. Oh, sister, you think this is about social standing? Mother shot her a warning look. Lana, enough. We're facing bankruptcy, Lana continued, ignoring Mother. The estate, the investments, everything. It's all hanging by a thread. But the Francis family can save us. Their connections, their resources. Their money, I whispered. Don't be crude, Mother snapped. This is about legacy, about family duty. Your father's poor decisions have left us vulnerable. I thought of Dad, probably hiding in his study with a bottle. He hadn't been the same since the market crash of '08, since Mother took control of everything. I want to meet him first, I said. Milton. Already arranged. Mother pulled out her phone. Dinner tomorrow night. Wear the blue Valentino. It makes you look less pale. And if I refuse? Lana's hand clamped down on my shoulder. Then Dad goes to prison for fraud. Is that what you want? To see your father in handcuffs? My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? Those investment papers he signed? Mother's voice was silk over steel. Not all of them were strictly legal. The authorities would be very interested. You're blackmailing me? With Dad? We're protecting you, Lana corrected. Protecting all of us. The Francis family can make everything disappear. Their political connections alone. I sank back into my chair, nausea rising. How long have you been planning this? Long enough, Mother said. Milton is a good match. Quiet, like you. Focused on his work. He won't interfere. With what? Another warning look between them. With your happiness, of course, Mother smiled. Now, about the engagement party. I'm thinking the Plaza Hotel. They launched into wedding details. My presence forgotten. I sat there, numb, watching them plot out my future like moves on a chessboard. The next evening, I met Milton at La Croix. He was tall, well-dressed, with sharp features and calculating eyes. We sat in uncomfortable silence while our mothers chatted about flower arrangements. Do you golf? He finally asked. No. Good. Neither do I. Something in his tone made me look up. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. Later, as the waiters cleared our plates, I heard Lana whisper to Mother, Everything's proceeding as planned. We'll finish the job after the wedding. My fork clattered against china. Milton's eyes met mine across the table, and for a moment, I saw something familiar in them. The same trapped look I saw in my mirror every morning. That night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled up Milton's social media searching for something. His profiles were sparse, controlled, but one photo caught my eye. Him at a charity gala, standing slightly apart from the crowd, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. My phone buzzed with a text from Lana. Remember, not a word about Dad's situation. To anyone, ever. I walked to my window, staring at the moonlit gardens below. The estate that had once been our pride was showing signs of decay. Weeds pushing through cracked fountains, paint peeling from shutters. All that careful maintenance of appearances, while everything rotted from within. Another text, this time from Mother. Wedding planner tomorrow, 10 a.m. Don't be late. I turned off my phone and pressed my forehead against the cool glass. They thought they had me cornered, the perfect pawn in their perfect plan. But even pawns can change the game. Your mother's company doesn't exist, Milton said quietly, sliding a folder across his office desk. At least, not legally. 3 weeks had passed since our engagement announcement. We were alone in his downtown high-rise office, 40 stories above the city. The sun was setting, painting the room in shades of orange and shadow. I opened the folder with trembling fingers. Inside were registration documents, tax records, incorporation papers, all showing different companies with slightly altered versions of my mother's business name. Shell companies, he explained, dozens of them, each one existing just long enough to move money before dissolving. How did you find this? I had suspicions when your mother's background check came back. Too clean. He loosened his tie. No one's record is that perfect, so I dug deeper. A knock at the door made us both jump. Milton's secretary poked her head in. Your mother's online too, Mr. Francis. Tell her I'm in a meeting. His voice was steel. After the door closed, he turned back to me. Your sister's involved too, isn't she? I nodded, my throat tight. Lana handles the paperwork. She has a way of making things disappear. Like your father's real investment records? You know about those? Milton's laugh was bitter. My family didn't get where we are by being naive. The question is, what are we going to do about it? We? He leaned forward, eyes intense. I refused an arranged marriage once before. Nearly cost me everything. I won't be anyone's pawn again. My heart raced. I need help, I whispered. Someone who understands financial fraud. I know someone. Milton pulled out his phone. Caden Holmes, former auditor turned private investigator. He's discreet, thorough, and owes me a favor. 2 days later, I met Caden in a quiet coffee shop across town. He was younger than I expected, with kind eyes and a laptop covered in stickers. These transactions, he said, pointing to a screen, they're sophisticated, professional. Your mother and sister have been doing this for years. Can you prove it? With time. He took a sip of coffee. But we need to be careful. People who commit fraud at this level, they don't react well to exposure. I'm not afraid of them anymore. Caden's eyes softened. Maybe you should be. Just a little. That evening, Mother cornered me in the kitchen. Where were you today? Wedding errands, I lied smoothly. The florist had questions about centerpieces. Funny, she mused, examining her manicure, because I called the florist. They said you canceled your appointment. My pulse quickened. I meant the backup florist, in case the first one falls through. Always so practical, she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Just like your sister. Speaking of Lana, she mentioned seeing you downtown, near the financial district. I was looking at jewelry stores. Of course you were. Mother touched my cheek. Her fingers were cold. Remember, darling, this wedding isn't just about you. It's about all of us. Our future. After she left, I texted Milton. They're watching me. His reply came instantly. Time to accelerate the plan. Meet me tomorrow. Bring everything you have. That night, I couldn't sleep. I crept down to Dad's study, where he sat staring at old photographs. Did you know, I asked, about what they were doing? He looked up, eyes cloudy with bourbon. I knew enough to drink myself stupid. He picked up a photo, Mom and Lana at some charity gala. They were always smarter than me, always one step ahead. Help me stop them. I can't. His hands shook. They'll bury me. They already have. The next morning, Caden called with news. I found something big, a series of emails between your mother and offshore accounts. They're planning to use the wedding donations as a front for money laundering. My stomach lurched. How much? Millions. And that's just the beginning. Once they have access to the Francis family's political connections, send everything to Milton, I interrupted. Every document, every email. We need backups. Already done. But Valeria, he paused. Be careful. I think someone's been following me. I ended the call and stared out my bedroom window. A black car I didn't recognize was parked across the street. My phone buzzed. A text from Lana. Family dinner tonight. Don't be late. We need to discuss the wedding guest list. Another text from Milton. Got Caden's files. It's worse than we thought. But we have them now. I touched the window glass, watching my reflection overlap with the distant city skyline. In just a few weeks, I'd gone from victim to vigilante, from pawn to player. The black car across the street started its engine. Let them watch. Let them wonder. The game was changing, and they didn't even know they were already losing. Where do you think you're going? Lana's voice cut through the foyer like a knife. She stood at the top of the stairs, one hand on the banister, watching me reach for the front door. Dress fitting, I said, gripping my car keys tighter. No, you're not. She descended the stairs slowly, each click of her heels deliberate. Because I just called the boutique. They said you rescheduled for next week. My mouth went dry. I have other appointments. Cancel them. She reached the bottom step. Mother wants you home today. We need to discuss the engagement party guest list. I can't just sit. She pointed to the living room. Now. I followed her, my legs wooden. The living room felt smaller than usual, stuffed with wedding catalogs and sample centerpieces. Mother sat in her favorite armchair, polishing the family veil. Darling, she smiled, holding up the ancient lace. I've been thinking about tradition. The veil was yellowed with age, heavy with tiny pearls and old promises. Every Matthew's bride had worn it. Every one of them had suffered. This veil, Mother continued, represents our family's strength, our resilience. She stood, draping it over my head. Our ability to do whatever it takes. The lace felt like cobwebs against my skin. Through it, I saw Lana checking her phone, frowning. Speaking of tradition, Lana said, we need to discuss your social media presence. It's been concerning. What do you mean? These mysterious appointments, the deleted browser history, the calls to numbers we don't recognize. She stepped closer. Someone might think you're up to something. Mother adjusted the veil, her fingers lingering near my throat. We can't have any surprises, can we? The Francis family is very particular about appearances. I'm not. Shh. Mother's grip tightened on my shoulder. The engagement party is in 2 days. Everything must be perfect. No distractions. A knock at the door made us all turn. Through the lace, I saw a familiar figure in the doorway. Wendy, my childhood friend. I hadn't seen her in years, not since Mother had deemed her unsuitable company. Sorry to interrupt, Wendy said, her voice steady. I heard about the engagement and wanted to drop off a gift. How thoughtful! Mother's tone could freeze hell. But we're in the middle of something. Of course. Wendy placed a small package on the side table. Her eyes met mine through the veil. Congratulations, Val. The gift's nothing special, just a USB drive with some old photos I thought you'd like. My heart skipped. Wendy had always been clever. I'll show you out, Lana said quickly, steering Wendy toward the door. Later that night, after Mother finally released me, I locked myself in my bathroom and plugged in the drive. It contained exactly what we needed, a program to back up files remotely, hidden behind a slideshow of childhood photos. My phone buzzed. Milton. Engagement party tomorrow. My mother's suspicious. Be ready. Another buzz. Kaiden. Found something in the donation records. It's big. Don't trust anyone. I heard footsteps in the hallway. Lana's distinctive heel clicks. Quickly, I flushed the toilet and ran the sink, hiding the USB drive in my makeup bag. The next morning, I found my phone had been tampered with. All my contacts were gone, except for family and the wedding planner. But they didn't know about my second phone, hidden in a hollow book in the library. The engagement party loomed like a storm cloud. Mother paraded me through final preparations like a show pony. Stand straighter, she hissed during the final venue walkthrough. And remember, the Francis family asks questions. Give them only the answers we practiced. Yes, Mother. And darling? She cupped my face, nails digging into my cheeks. If you embarrass us, if you ruin this, well, your father's fraud charges would be just the beginning. That evening, as I got ready for the party, I found a note slipped under my door. In Wendy's handwriting, the walls have ears, but so do I. Signal if you need help. I touched the family veil, laid out on my bed like a burial shroud. Through my window, I could see cars already arriving for the party. Sleek, expensive vehicles carrying Vancouver's elite. My phone buzzed one last time. An unknown number. Found the memo. SM plans to use wedding donation accounts for laundering. Proof attached. K. I deleted the message just as Lana barged in. Time to go, she announced, eyes scanning my room suspiciously. And Val, remember who you are, what you owe this family. I looked in the mirror, adjusting the veil. Through its web of lace, my reflection seemed to smile, a sharp, dangerous thing. I remember exactly who I am, I whispered, too softly for her to hear. And what you all owe me. The wedding has to be the trigger point, Milton said, pacing his penthouse balcony. The city lights twinkled below us like fallen stars. Any earlier, and they'll have time to cover their tracks. Kaiden sat at the glass dining table, surrounded by laptops and documents. The timing has to be perfect. Once we expose them, they'll try to destroy everything. They already are, I said, showing them my tampered phone. Lana's getting desperate. She's watching every move I make. Then we need to be smarter. Milton pulled out a burner phone. Use this. I've hired a private investigator to monitor your house. If anything happens, nothing will happen, Kaiden interrupted, because we're going to beat them at their own game. He pulled up a complex spreadsheet. Your mother's planning to use the wedding donations as a front. Rich guests, big checks, all going into accounts she controls. Classic laundering scheme. But we'll be ready, Milton added. My mother's already suspicious. She's been asking questions about your family's finances. I remembered Adeline Francis's sharp eyes at the engagement party, the way she watched Mother's every move. What about the evidence? I asked. Kaiden gestured to his screens. Triple backed up. Cloud servers, physical drives, even paper copies in a safety deposit box. They can't erase this. But they can erase me, I whispered. Milton stopped pacing. What do you mean? Last night, I found these in Mother's study. I pulled out a stack of papers. They're transfer documents. Once we're married, everything goes into accounts I can't access. They're planning to cut me out completely. After using you as their puppet, Milton's voice was cold, just like they tried to do to me. What happened? I asked. With your almost marriage? He leaned against the balcony railing. 2 years ago, another perfect match arranged by my parents. But I discovered she was working with corporate spies. They wanted our company's trading algorithms. What did you do? I exposed everything. Lost friends, trust, social standing. But I kept my integrity. He turned to me. That's why I'm helping you. I know what it's like to be used by the people who should protect you. Caden's laptop pinged. Got something. Your sister's been making late-night visits to a storage facility downtown. The records, I realized. She's hiding physical copies. Not for long. Milton pulled out his phone. My PI will handle it. A knock at the door made us freeze. Milton checked the security camera and relaxed. It's Wendy. She entered carrying shopping bags. Perfect cover if anyone was watching. Your mother's on the move, she said. She's meeting with bank executives tomorrow. Something about post-wedding arrangements. We need to move faster, Caden said. The wedding's in 3 weeks. If they suspect anything, they won't. I stood up, determination replacing fear. Because I'm going to give them exactly what they want. What do you mean? Milton asked. The perfect, obedient daughter. I'll play my part so well they'll never see it coming. Wendy touched my arm. Be careful. Your sister's dangerous when she's cornered. I know. I remembered the look in Lana's eyes when she threatened me. But so am I. We spent the next hour finalizing details. Caden would compile the evidence. Milton would handle the timing and security. Wendy would be our eyes and ears in social circles. One more thing, Milton said as we prepared to leave. My mother wants to have lunch tomorrow. Just you and her. My stomach tightened. Why? She has questions. Answer them carefully. She could be a powerful ally. Or enemy. Back home, I found Lana waiting in my room. Where were you? She demanded. Final dress fitting, I said smoothly. You can call the boutique this time. She studied my face. You're different lately. Calmer. I've accepted my role, I lied. This wedding will save our family, right? Her smile was razor sharp. Right. Just remember, no one likes a bride who asks too many questions. After she left, I checked my new burner phone. Messages from everyone. Milton. PI found documents at storage. Getting copies tonight. Caden. Money trail confirmed. Ready when you are. Wendy. Watch your back. Lana's been asking about your schedule. I stood at my window, watching the black car that had become a permanent fixture across the street. Mother's surveillance, no doubt. Let them watch. Let them think they've won. In 3 weeks, I would walk down that aisle carrying more than just a bouquet. I would carry their destruction, wrapped in white lace and sealed with their own signatures. The game was entering its final phase, and I had learned from the best how to play dirty. The rehearsal dinner sparkled with false promises. Crystal glasses clinked, silver gleamed, and Mother held court at the head table like a queen about to win her war. To my beautiful daughter, she raised her champagne, voice dripping honey, who has always known the importance of family loyalty. The crowd of Vancouver's elite murmured appreciatively. I caught Milton's eye across the table. His slight nod told me everything. Our final pieces were in place. Lana slid into the empty seat beside me, her garnet dress the color of old blood. Having fun, sister dear? Of course, I smiled, channeling her own brand of sweetness. Everything's perfect. Almost perfect. She leaned closer, whispering, Shame about Kaiden's assistant going missing. Kate? Wasn't that her name? My hand tightened around my fork. I wouldn't know. No? Lana's smile widened. Funny because her phone records show quite a few calls to a certain burner phone. Before I could respond, Adeline Francis appeared behind us. Lana, dear, tell me more about these investment opportunities you mentioned earlier. Lana switched masks seamlessly. Of course, Mrs. Francis. Shall we discuss it somewhere private? They moved away, leaving me with my heart pounding. I excused myself to the bathroom, hands shaking as I texted Milton, "They know about Kate." His response was immediate. "She's safe. Part of the plan. Keep calm." The bathroom door opened. Mother entered, her silk dress rustling like snakeskin. "Darling," she adjusted her pearls in the mirror, "you've done so well these past weeks. I almost believed you'd finally learned your place." "What do you mean?" She turned, eyes hard. "Did you really think we wouldn't find your little backup drives? Your secret meetings? I raised you, Valeria. I know when you're plotting." "Mother, no matter," she waved dismissively. "By this time tomorrow, everything will be secured. The Francis fortune, the political connections, all of it. And you?" She touched my cheek. "You'll be exactly where we put you." "Like Dad?" I challenged. "Your father was weak. You're not. That's why we chose you for this role." She headed for the door, then paused. "Oh, and dear, if you're thinking of using those files you've collected, don't. They've been taken care of." My blood ran cold. I rushed back to the dining room, searching for Caden. He was gone. Milton appeared at my elbow. "Breathe," he whispered. "Everything's proceeding exactly as we planned." "But Kate is with Caden at a secure location, along with all our evidence. Your mother only found the decoys." Across the room, Lana was showing Adeline something on her tablet. Investment projections, probably all fake, all part of their elaborate scheme. "Toast time!" Mother clinked her glass. The room fell silent. "Tomorrow, our families unite in more than just marriage. We unite in purpose, in vision, in—" She paused dramatically. "Destiny." I watched her perform, seeing every calculated gesture, every practiced emotion. She taught me well, too well, because now I could see right through her. My phone buzzed. Wendy. "Package delivered. All systems go." Another buzz. Caden. "Evidence secured. Final copies in place." The night wore on. Guests departed in waves of expensive perfume and air kisses. Mother and Lana stayed late, finalizing details with the wedding planner. "Remember," Lana caught my arm as I headed upstairs. "Noon tomorrow. Don't be late. Don't be clever. Just be the bride we need you to be." In my room, I found my wedding dress laid out like a pristine trap. The family veil beside it, heavy with generations of silence. My burner phone lit up one last time. Milton. "My mother knows. She's with us. Tomorrow, we end this." I walked to my window. The black surveillance car was still there, watching. In 12 hours, I would put on that dress. I would wear that veil. I would walk down that aisle. But Mother was wrong about one thing. She hadn't raised me to be obedient. She'd raised me to be like her, calculating, patient, and absolutely merciless when crossed. I touched the hidden pocket I'd sewn into my bouquet, where the final piece of evidence waited. The email that would destroy everything. Mother's own words, confessing to the entire scheme. My regular phone chimed. "Mother, sleep well, darling. Tomorrow you make us proud." I smiled at the city lights, at the watching car, at the veil that would be my last act of submission. "Yes, Mother," I whispered to the empty room. "Tomorrow I'll make you proud, just not in the way you think." The cathedral bells chimed noon as I reached the altar. Milton stands waiting, his expression perfectly neutral. Behind him, I see Caden slip into a back pew, laptop ready. Wendy's already in position near the side exit. Everything's ready. "Dearly beloved," the priest begins. Mother beams from the front row, dabbing at dry eyes with her monogrammed handkerchief. Lana sits beside her, scrolling through her phone, probably checking those offshore accounts one last time. We are gathered here today. I think of Kate, safe in a hotel across town, with copies of every document. Of Adeline Francis, who sits ramrod straight, waiting for her cue. Of my father, surprisingly sober today, watching everything with clear eyes for the first time in years. The priest drones on about love and devotion, about sacred bonds and holy unions. If he only knew the real bonds at play here, the ones forged in threats and sealed with blackmail. If anyone has reason why these two should not be joined, Mother's smile tightens. This is the moment she's feared, but not for the reason she thinks. Actually, I say clearly, my voice carrying through the cathedral's perfect acoustics, I have something to say first. A murmur ripples through the crowd. Lana's head snaps up from her phone. Valeria, Mother warns softly, don't. I turn to face the assembled guests, pulling the leather folder from my bouquet. I have a wedding gift for everyone. The truth. Security! Lana stands, but Milton's private security team is faster, blocking the exits. This folder, I hold it up, contains proof of a decade-long fraud scheme, shell companies, money laundering, blackmail. I lock eyes with the mother, all orchestrated by my own family. The crowd erupts in whispers. Phones start recording. You ungrateful little... Lana lunges forward, but Adeline Francis catches her arm. I wouldn't, Adeline says coldly. The police are already on their way. Mother stands, switching to her society smile. Clearly, my daughter is having a nervous breakdown. Play the audio, I call out. Caden's laptop speakers crackle to life, filling the cathedral with Mother's own voice. Once the wedding's done, we'll have access to everything. The Francis accounts, their political connections. Valeria's just the key to the vault. More recordings follow. Lana discussing offshore accounts. Mother threatening Dad. The entire scheme, laid bare before Vancouver's elite. You've destroyed us all, Mother hisses, her mask finally cracking. No, I remove the veil, that symbol of family obligation, and let it fall. You did that yourself. The heavy doors burst open. Police officers flood in, led by detectives with the warrant papers. Simone and Lana Matthews, one calls out, you're under arrest for fraud, money laundering, and criminal conspiracy. Chaos erupts. Guests stand for a better view, phones recording everything. Mother's perfect society friends back away, already distancing themselves from the scandal. How could you? Lana spits as handcuffs click around her wrists. Your own family. Family? I step closer. You made me a prisoner. A puppet. That's not family, that's abuse. Mother's face contorts with rage as they lead her past me. I gave you everything. No, you took everything. And now, I smile, I'm taking it back. The detectives gather statements. Evidence is collected. Mother and Lana are led out through a sea of flashing phones and shocked faces. Milton touches my arm. You did it. We did it, I correct him. Thank you for believing me. Thank you for saving my family from yours. Dad approaches slowly, looking older and younger at the same time. I should have protected you, he says quietly. You can start now, I tell him, by telling the police everything. Adeline Francis stands at the altar, addressing the stunned crowd. The wedding is obviously canceled. Please accept our apologies for the deception, though not, I think, from the intended perpetrators. Wendy appears at my side with a change of clothes. Ready to get out of that dress? I look down at the white silk and lace. Mother's choice, like everything else in my life until now. More than ready. As I leave the cathedral, I hear the whispers, see the stares. Tomorrow, this will be everywhere. Newspapers, social media, gossip columns, the society wedding that turned into a sting operation. But for now, I walk into the sunshine, free of the veil, the dress, the lies, free of their control. My phone buzzes. Kaiden. Evidence safely delivered to prosecutors. You're trending on Twitter. Another buzz. Milton. Dinner next week? As friends this time. And finally, a text from an unknown number. You did the right thing. Love, Kate. I look back at the cathedral one last time. Mother always said I was too quiet, too obedient. She never realized she was teaching me her greatest lesson. Revenge is a dish best served in public with plenty of witnesses. The Matthews estate feels different in autumn. Dead leaves scatter across the cracked driveway as I pull up to the iron gates. They're rusted now. No one's been maintaining them since the trial. Are you sure about this? Wendy asked from the passenger seat. I need to do it, I say, punching in the old gate code. It still works. The house looms ahead, windows dark and shuttered. After Mother and Lana's conviction, 15 years for fraud, money laundering, and criminal conspiracy, the estate was seized as evidence. Now it's just an empty shell, waiting to be auctioned off. I use my key for the last time. The foyer echoes with our footsteps. Dust covers everything. The crystal chandelier, the marble stairs, the antique furniture Mother was so proud of. Where should we start? Wendy asks. The library. We work methodically, boxing up the few personal items I want to keep. Old photos, Dad's college yearbook, the books that kept me sane during those years of isolation. My phone buzzes. Caden. Just finished another interview. 3 more fraud victims came forward. Since the wedding, more of Mother's schemes have surfaced, more victims speaking out. The investigation keeps growing, spreading like roots through Vancouver's elite society. Look what I found! Wendy holds up the family veil, now gray with dust. What should we do with it? Burn it. We make a small fire in the courtyard, watching the ancient lace curl and blacken. Each pearl that drops into the flames feels like releasing another chain. My phone rings. Milton. The Francis Foundation approved your proposal, he says, without preamble. Full funding for the advocacy program. Really? Really? Adeline specifically wants you to run it. She says your story will help other victims come forward. After the wedding, dozens of letters poured in. Children of wealthy families sharing similar stories of manipulation, fraud, forced marriages. My public statement sparked a movement nobody saw coming. How's your father? Milton asks. Better. The rehab program's working. He's testifying against Mother's old business partners next week. Dad chose cooperation over prison. His testimony helped uncover 3 more fraud rings operating in the city's upper circles. Last week, he smiled for the first time in years. A car pulls up outside. Caden and Kate, right on schedule. Found something interesting in Lana's old office, Caden says, holding up a laptop. Hidden partition. More evidence. Still collecting? I ask. Always. Your mother's network went deep. Each new case helps another victim. Kate starts photographing the house for the auction listing. She's fully recovered from her disappearance. Mother's failed attempt to silence her only made her more determined to expose the truth. Mail came to my office for you, Wendy says, handing me an envelope. Inside is a letter from prison, written in Mother's perfect penmanship. Darling, you think you've won, but everything I did for this family. One day you'll understand. Mother, I drop the letter into the fire with the veil. The flames consume her words, just like they consumed her lies. The reporters are here, Kate calls from inside. I straighten my jacket. Since the wedding, I've given dozens of interviews. Each one helps another family recognize the warning signs of financial abuse and fraud. The reporter sets up in the living room where Mother once held court. Tell me about the advocacy program, she says. It's called Breaking Patterns, I explain. We provide legal support, counseling, and safe houses for victims of family financial abuse. The Francis Foundation's funding will help us expand nationwide. And your mother? Any response to her appeal being denied? My mother taught me everything I know about patience, manipulation, and revenge. I just use those lessons differently than she intended. After the interview, we finish packing. Each box feels lighter than the last. Tomorrow, these will go to my new apartment. The rest will be auctioned, with proceeds going to the Victims' Restitution Fund. Ready? Wendy asks, as we stand in the foyer one last time. I look up at the chandelier, remembering all the parties, the schemes, the quiet threats over perfect table settings. The house feels smaller now, less threatening. Yes, I say, turning to leave. I'm ready. Outside, the autumn wind scatters more leaves across the driveway. Nature slowly reclaiming what greed built. I lock the door, then drop the key into the donation box. They say home is where your story begins. But sometimes, home is also where you choose to end one story and begin another. Mine begins now.
The musty scent of old papers and dust hung in the air as I knelt before the antique safe, the only tangible possession Mom left behind after the house was sold to pay off debts. With trembling hands, I entered the code from her battered journal and heard the tumblers click open, revealing the truth that would shatter my world forever. Stacks of envelopes and documents spilled out, each one a heavy, damning weight in my hands. Photos of a strange woman and children I didn't recognize. Bank statements detailing exorbitant withdrawals and transfers to offshore accounts. It was all there, the undeniable proof of my father's betrayal. No, it can't be, I whispered, fingers tightening around the papers until the corners crumpled. Maya squeezed my shoulder, eyes wide with disbelief. Sloan, what is all this? The words caught in my throat as reality slammed into me like a freight train. My dad's constant business trips and excuses for working late, it was all an elaborate facade concealing his double life while he drained our family's assets. As I rifled through the documents, fury blazed within me, burning away any remaining doubt. He had been lying to us for decades, while living it up with some mistress and their children, leaving us in poverty when Mom got sick. That bass! Maya's curse was cut off by the crinkling of an aged envelope tucked beneath the pile. Mom's elegant handwriting adorned the front, the last words she left for me before cancer stole her voice forever. My dearest Sloan, if you're reading this, it means the worst has happened. I tore it open with shaking hands and read the letter, hot tears streaking my face. It contained all Mom's suspicions about Dad's shady activities, her desperate pleas to uncover the truth and protect what little we had left from his greed. He ruined everything. I choked out, slammed the letter to the floor. Let him have his precious money and perfect second family. I'm going to take back what he stole from us and Mom. The fire of righteous vengeance burned in my chest, fueling a determination that wouldn't be extinguished until Warren Harper paid the price for his unforgivable sins. Maya met my blazing gaze, her expression hardening with grim resolution. What do you need me to do? Rising to my feet, I straightened my shoulders and spoke in a voice tempered by the injustice clawing at my soul. First, we need to find out everything we can about Dad's secret life. Bank accounts, property, all of it. We're going to bleed him dry, just like he did to us. I would stop at nothing to dismantle the very foundation of lies he built his life upon. If taking away his wealth and status was the only way to hurt him, that's exactly what I would do. Warren Harper wanted to play make-believe as a doting husband and father? Fine. I would be the one to administer a devastating wake-up call, using his own damning evidence against him. Gathering the documents into a box, I felt the weight of Dad's sins like an anvil. But they would be weapons in my quest to settle the score and honor Mom's dying plea for justice. No matter what it took, I would have my retribution, even if it meant destroying him and the life he so selfishly stole from our family. The diner's amber lighting cast somber shadows across Derek Thompson's weathered face as he flipped through the documents I had gathered. A hushed silence hung between us, punctuated only by the clink of drained coffee mugs. "This is some heavy stuff," he finally said, leaning back in the vinyl booth. "Your old man's been running quite the con." I nodded, jaw clenched. "And I intend to make him pay for every lawn he fed us." Derek's eyes narrowed at my steely tone. As a veteran private investigator, he had seen his fair share of messy domestic cases, but there was an intensity in my gaze that gave him pause. "Listen, Sloan, getting tangled up in this revenge scheme could get real ugly. You sure you want to go down that road?" He took everything from us. I snapped, slamming my palm on the table. Embers of Mom's dying anguish flared within me. That bastard bled my mother dry to fund his fairy tale family, letting her waste away without a penny for treatment. Derek held up a placating hand, unfazed by my outburst. I get the desire for payback, believe me, but going nuclear on this won't bring your mom back. My fingers dug into the tabletop, desperation burning in my chest. Then what choice do I have? Just let him live his perfect life after betraying us like that? Sorrow flickered across the PI's face as our eyes met in an intense standoff. Finally, he sighed, raking a hand through his thinning hair. All right, kid, I'll help you nail this scumbag to the wall, but we play this smart. No cowboy stunts or sending out any unverified info, got it? Relief washed over me. With Derek's expertise, I could unearth every last secret and ensure Warren's carefully constructed facade crumbled to dust. A faint smile played across my lips. Deal. So where do we start? Over the following weeks, Derek and I pored over every shred of evidence, identifying bank accounts, properties, and shell companies, all meticulously hidden by my father's intricate money trail. With each discovery, the full scope of his deception became more staggering. I seethed as photos of the younger, dark-haired woman plastered on vacation snapshots filled my screen. Her delighted smile beside my father's happy countenance was like a viper's strike to my heart. That's Michelle Sanders, Derek said gruffly. A former employee turned live-in mistress by the looks of it. White-hot rage licked at my nerves as I studied the images of her and the two children, my vile half-siblings born from my dad's ultimate betrayal. Aching memories of Mom's endless sacrifices to keep our small family afloat battered my mind like a relentless gale. How could he? My voice trembled with scarcely restrained fury. A heavy hand squeezed my shoulder, jerking me from my spiral of anguish. Derek's voice rumbled with firm insistence. We're going to crucify this piece of work, Sloan. I promise you that. But you've got to keep your head in the game, you hear? Steadying my ragged breaths, I gave a terse nod. He was right. Losing myself to rage now would only sabotage my mission. I steadied my resolve, determined to unleash a cold, calculated vengeance. Every uncovered asset, every financial maneuver linked to Michelle and her brats, it would all become the noose to hang Warren Harper with his own greed. Tears burned at my eyes, this time ignited by the fire of retribution rather than sorrow. One way or another, he would answer for his sins against our family. I would make certain of it. The address burned in my mind like a brand, the home my father had bought with the spoils of his betrayal. My knuckles turned white as I gripped the steering wheel, barely registering Derek's concerned glances. You sure about this, Sloan? Getting up close and personal with the other family is playing with fire. I swallowed hard, anger and disgust churning in my gut. I need to see it for myself, to look into the eyes of the lives he chose over us. Derek grunted, recognizing the steely determination in my voice. We pulled up to the stately two-story colonial, its pristine exterior mocking the dysfunction lurking within. My breath caught as Michelle exited the front door, ushering two young children into a spotless SUV. Though years younger than Mom with expensive highlights, her pastel sundress and manicured nails showcased a clear life of comfort and luxury, everything my mother was denied. Fury seared through me at the injustice. This was the woman who had seduced my father, the home wrecker who enabled his depravity without a second thought for his other family's well-being. Derek squeezed my arm, pulling me from my rage-filled reverie. Easy there, kiddo. Stay frosty. Nodding tersely, I willed my emotions into an icy reserve as Michelle climbed into the driver's seat. Before the engine could turn over, a teenage boy emerged from the house, my half-brother Lucas. I instinctively shrank lower in the seat, drinking in every detail of the stranger who shared my DNA. Short, sandy hair cut into a fashionable style framed his youthful features as he adjusted the strap of his backpack with a casual confidence. In that moment, envy and resentment warred within me. While I had spent my adolescence going without, shuffling between part-time jobs to pay the bills, Lucas Harper strode to his awaiting chariot without a care beyond which shirt to pick out that morning. My nails dug crescents into my palms, a silent scream building in my throat. I wanted to storm that picture-perfect sanctuary and unleash every ounce of fury simmering beneath the surface. But I didn't. Derek's stern coaching echoed in my mind. Any rash outburst now could sabotage months of effort. I was the wronged party, yes, but also the one with control over when and how this twisted saga would climax. So I kept my anger banked, watching impassively as the SUV backed out and disappeared down the suburban street, carrying my worst enemy and his twisted beloved family. As we trailed after them, the knot of emotions in my chest crystallized into a frigid clarity. I could wait, had been waiting over 2 decades for this moment. And when the time was perfect, when every salacious detail had been pried open like a wound, the Harpers would reap the destruction they deserved. No more delays, no more secrets, just the burden of their sins laid bare. That night, spread across the battered coffee table of my ramshackle apartment, photos and dossiers chronicling Warren's dual lives were arranged in an intricate mosaic of deception. Hollow-eyed and weary, I nonetheless studied them with rapt intensity, while Maya nursed a glass of cheap white wine beside me. "So what now?" she asked quietly, wary of disturbing my focus. A ghost of a smile played across my lips as I traced the image of Warren's arm slung casually around Michelle's shoulders. "Now we make our next move. It's time the mistress and her brats got a proper introduction." The sleek office of the Herald Tribune loomed before me, its imposing glass facade a stark contrast to the burning determination in my chest. This was it, the first salvo in my carefully planned offensive against Warren Harper's deceitful empire. Maya shifted nervously beside me, clutching the hefty manila envelope like a lifeline. "You're sure about this? Leaking stuff to the media could make this situation blow up fast." I shot her a steely glance, my resolve immovable. "That's exactly what I want. No more shadows to slither in, no more hiding his vile secrets." Squaring my shoulders, I strode towards the gleaming entrance with single-minded focus. It's time for the truth to see the light. The rhythmic clack of my heels echoed through the lobby as I approached the front desk. A bored-looking intern glanced up from his phone with a half-hearted greeting that died on his lips at my glacial expression. "I need to speak with your investigative reporters. Immediately." It wasn't a request. Any timidness he may have felt evaporated as he took in my stern countenance. Stammering an obligatory, "One moment," the hapless intern scurried towards the editorial bank of offices. Minutes later, a tanned, immaculately dressed woman with the unmistakable air of a veteran journalist strode towards us. Sharp brown eyes appraised me with the calculating gaze of a hunter scenting its prey. "Amelia Knowles," she said by way of introduction, extending a hand. "I'm the Herald Tribune's senior editor. My colleague mentioned you have something that might pique our investigative team's interest." A faint smile played across my lips as we shook. "You could say that." The next hour was a dizzying tempest as Maya and I systematically unveiled the evidence we'd compiled. Tax records, property deeds, salacious photos, all intricately laying bare the sordid details of Warren's double life. My voice was an unwavering cadence as I spelled out every lurid detail, from his embezzlement and fraud to the calculated betrayal of his wife and child. Throughout the debriefing, Amelia's expression remained infuriatingly impassive as she scrutinized the documentation with a critical eye. When I finally fell silent, the rapid cadence of my heartbeat thundered in my ears like wardens awaiting the final reckoning. A heavy exhale shattered the tension as the reporter lifted her gaze, eyes glinting with the faintest hint of admiration. "This is huge. Frankly, I'm amazed you were able to compile all of this without getting caught." Her ruby lips quirked in a wry smirk. "The depths this poor bastard's going to be raked over the coals if even half of this pans out." She trailed off, gaze shifting speculatively back to me. "I have to ask, what's your stake in all this? You're clearly not just some concerned citizen." My jaw clenched, the embers of fury banked low in my core, flaring white-hot as I met her stare unflinchingly. "Warren Harper is my father," I said, each word biting and precise. "That evidence details how he defrauded my family, robbed us of our life savings, and lived a double life as his 6 side pieces sugar daddy while my mother wasted away." Amelia's brows arched in surprise, but I pressed on, savoring the exquisite anguish beginning to claw at my soul. "He's about to learn that no secret, no matter how deeply buried, stays hidden forever." My gaze bored into her with an intensity that would brook no argument. I want you to crucify the bastard in the court of public opinion, make him a pariah so reviled that the world spits on his name." Despite her seasoned composure, the editor's throat bobbed in a slight gulp as the gravity of my request settled over her. After a tense heartbeat, she gave a solemn nod. "Consider it done." As Maya and I strode from that office, I could already picture the headlines: "Family Man's Sordid Double Life Exposed." But this was merely the opening salvo, the first rift in the dam that would soon burst under the weight of Warren's sins and leave his pathetic existence in ruins. The game was afoot, and I was just getting started. The rhythmic clicking of my heels reverberated through the polished lobby as I strode towards the opulent venue. Sleek marble tiles glistened under crystal chandeliers that cast a warm glow over impeccably dressed attendees, mingling with sparkling flutes of champagne. In another life, this would have been my world, too, a privileged daughter with the keys to every stratum of high society. But that legacy had been tarnished long ago by Warren's insidious deception. Scanning the crowd with a calculated intensity, I spotted my target near the center of the throng. His tailored Tom Ford suit radiated an unearned confidence befitting an elder statesman, a veneer of respectability armoring him against the avalanche I was about to unleash. For nearly a month since our damning exposé, Warren had weathered the public firestorm with the arrogant nonchalance of a man who believed himself bulletproof. His canned, pre-written statements denied all wrongdoing, dismissing the allegations as a smear campaign from jealous rivals. The slick bravado was almost admirable, if he wasn't such a depraved, lying sack of excrement. Tonight he would realize the folly of underestimating me. The game was entering its final throes. My gaze slid over the crowd, instantly locking onto Lucas standing alone near the bar with a glass of sparkling water. Despite our blood connection, seeing his youthful mien fill with bewildered hurt each time the scandal resurfaced carved guilt into the pit of my stomach. He was the one member of the Harper clan whose pain I regretted inflicting, the accidental civilian casualty swept up in a war not of his making. No. Stamping down the errant stab of sympathy, I adjusted the plunging neckline of my black evening gown and mustered every ounce of cold, seething hatred, honing it into a frozen point focused solely on the man responsible for our collective suffering. Time to give St. Warren his long-overdue epiphany. Well, if it isn't the man of the hour himself. I strode directly into his orbit, my voice dripping with saccharine derision. The sycophantic cluster of high rollers and social elites surrounding him turned in surprise, parting as my unrelenting steps sliced through the ring. His hawkish visage flinched reflexively at my sudden intrusion, but was swiftly concealed beneath his impeccably polished mask of hubris. Warren extended his arms in an exaggerated greeting, perfectly tailored for the public tableau. "Sloane, my dear darling daughter, what a surprise!" His gaze narrowed fractionally, piercing in a way that would make weaker spines shiver. "To what do I owe the pleasure on this fine evening?" I flashed him a toothy smile, dripping with acidic saccharine. "Oh, no pleasure needed, Daddy dear. Just a friendly warning that your delightfully chaotic harem-bred demise is imminent." His expression flickered for the briefest instant. Good, my barb found its mark. Dropping the cloying veneer, I leaned in with a low growl. "That limp PR spin isn't going to cut it much longer, old man. Soon the entire world will know the truth about your pathetic double life and how you pillaged and destroyed everything in your path to fund your whores and bastard spawn." "Sloane, that's enough," came a urgent, familiar voice. Lucas appeared at my side, face tight with reproachful concern. A part of me knew venting my wrath in so public a manner was risky. But in that moment, denying myself the exquisite release of finally unleashing the hatred simmering for decades was impossible. "No, it's not nearly enough," I shot back with vicious glee. "Not until he understands an ounce of the agony we suffered while he played patriarch to his pretty little replacement family." Warren's lips peeled back in an ugly sneer. "I've warned you about making a scene, girl." "Or what?" I laughed bitterly. "Going to cut me off from the inheritance you already stole? Let me save you the trouble and cut out the cancerous part of my life for good." I punctuated the final shout with a sharp shove to Warren's chest, his face contorting in shock as he momentarily lost his balance. Lucas instinctively reached out to steady his father, but a glare sent the wounded teen recoiling. Regaining his footing, my father's gaze bored into me with icy menace. For an infinite second, we were suspended in a Mexican standoff of warring fury, silent spectators forgotten in the vacuum of our private Armageddon. "We're not finished, Sloane," he hissed with quiet, paternal finality. "Not by a long shot." Spinning on his heel, Warren stormed off through the gawking throngs, trailed by his entourage of caretakers and enablers. Lucas lingered for a heartbeat, torn, before reluctantly trailing behind. My chest heaved with exertion and exhilaration. The line had been crossed. There was no going back from the bridge I'd burnt this night. Weaving through the stunned onlookers, I felt curiously liberated, unshackled from the emotional chains that had weighed me down for far too long. Let the final act commence. There would be no mercy, no respite, until one of us lay destroyed, and the other stood reborn from the ashes, free at last from this endless cycle of betrayal and deception. No matter what it took, whatever collateral damage must be absorbed or moral lines blurred, I would emerge the victor. The Harper name deserved to be scoured from existence after inflicting such grievous wounds. I swore it on my mother's eternal soul. The pulsating throb of bass resonated from the speakers as Derek scrutinized the shadowed figures on the monitor. From our concealed vantage point across the street, the high-definition cameras painted a crystal-clear portrait of activity unfolding within Warren's city penthouse. "This is our shot," I murmured, fingers digging into the plush armrests with white-knuckled intensity. His entire rotten empire about to come crashing down. For weeks, we had meticulously sliced through his labyrinthine network of shell corporations and offshore accounts, using the levers provided by the media circus his scandals had unleashed. Subpoenaed records exposed the staggering depths of his perfidy, decades of embezzlement, corporate fraud, and money laundering, all funneled into maintaining his indulgent double life. Each revelation had been another masterful stroke, slowly suffocating his resources until even his most staunch legal mercenaries began jumping ship. And now, with authorities closing in to execute a raft of arrest warrants, the ultimate checkmate was finally upon us. Derek hummed grimly, years of operational experience tempering any premature sense of victory. "Don't celebrate yet, Sloane. This whole situation's a powder keg. One wrong spark and it all goes up in flames." The crackle of a police radio shattered the tension as a voice barked coordinates in clipped, precise tones. My gut clenched reflexively. It was time. Moving in eerie lockstep, several blacked-out SUVs slid up to the curb as SWAT operatives swarmed the penthouse lobby's main entrance in coordinated stacks. Instinctively, I craned forward to make out the indistinct figures through the high-powered zoom lens. Then all hell broke loose. An ear-splitting crash reverberated as a side door shattered under a hail of gunfire. Trailing smoke and glass, Warren exploded onto the street at a dead sprint, an unconscious Lucas slung over his shoulder in a fireman's carry. Another man, Michelle's lanky frame unmistakable, barreled after them, firing wildly over his shoulder. Chaos erupted as SWAT teams instantly swarmed all potential exits, their commanding officers barking frantic orders into radios as the sleek sedans tore off down the avenue. "They're Rabbit the hostages!" Derek roared, vaulting over me to wrench open the van's side door. "Hurry, we have to follow them!" My heart thundered in my ears as I scrambled after him, suffocating guilt welling up unbidden. This was never supposed to involve innocence. As much as I despised the very air Lucas breathed, he didn't deserve to be terrorized by the monster masquerading as his father. A sonic boom of crunching metal shattered my spiraling thoughts as we careened around a corner just in time to see one of the SUVs T-boned by an armored SWAT truck in a hail of sparks and twisted steel. Through the billowing smoke of airbags, a shape shambled free. Warren gripping Lucas's limp form tightly in front of him, M9 pistol pressed against the teenager's skull. "Don't come any closer." His gravelly howl cut through the mayhem like a banshee's scream. Nose streaming blood, Warren's panicked eyes whipped around the cordon of combat-ready operatives now encircling him in slowly tightening rings. Seized by impulse, I shoved Derek aside and flung open the van's rear doors. Storming through the potential crossfire with reckless abandon, my strides echoed with apocalyptic finality in the eerie, smoke-shrouded stillness. The standoff froze as all eyes locked onto my inexorable advance. Even under the amber glow of emergency strobes, Warren's face paled to an otherworldly pallor. "Sloan, what are you doing?" The hand gripping Lucas trembled, belying the desperate shriek welling within him. "Have you lost your goddamned me?" "Enough!" My bellow was a thunderclap that cleaved through the chaos, the weight of months, years of pent-up emotions blazing with the force of a supernova. Coming to a halt mere feet from the standoff, my stare bored into the wretched husk of the man who had once claimed to be my father. "Look at you," I said with quiet, acidic disdain. The great Warren Harper, brought so low by his own gluttony and perversion, a truly fitting requiem for one so invested in defilement of family. Emboldened by my mocking reproach, 2 SWAT operatives crept forward in a measured pincer, weapons leveled with surgical precision. With a guttural roar of impotent fury, Warren savagely swung Lucas in front of him once more, the muzzle now digging brutally into the teen's sweat-soaked scalp. "Stay back! I swear to God I'll do it! I'll blow his goddamn brains out right here!" The words ricocheted through the vacant air, a final desperate bid by a rat backed into an inescapable corner. I couldn't help the contemptuous bark of laughter that burst forth. "Of course you would," I spat. "What's one more broken vow after a lifetime of moral bankruptcy, eh, Daddy dearest?" My unflinching disdain seemed to rob him of breath, his beady eyes bulging in impotent rage. Slowly, I took one measured step forward, then another, each footfall amplifying the deafening silence like a judge's gavel. "Do it," I growled. "Pull that trigger and totally destroy the facade of a man you never truly were. Let everyone here bear witness that the great Warren Harper is nothing more than a sadistic, abusive coward who would gas his own innocent child to save his worthless hide." My voice dropped to a mocking whisper, daring him to shatter whatever vestiges of humanity still flickered within his shriveled soul. "Do it." For an agonizing eternity, the world hung suspended as the 2 of us locked in a silent, psychic duel of wills. I saw the internal war warring across his face, an existential madness seizing him as every pillar supporting the grandiose delusions fueling his existence crumbled to ash. Then, like a puppet severed from its strings, the weapon clattered to the ground as our tortured progeny collapsed into his arms, sobbing in stunned bewilderment and relief. Without another word, I watched in grim triumph as armed forces swarmed both, ripping father from son, encasing the elder Harper in cold, unforgiving steel restraints. My fists clenched until nails bit into calloused palms, reveling in this long-awaited culmination. There would be no spectacular fireworks, no blinding supernova to top our saga, only the profoundly anticlimactic image of a broken shell of a human being being dragged off into the cold night. Just like that, the Ouroboros consuming our bloodline was severed forever. As Derek gently ushered Lucas to our idling van, I allowed one fleeting glance at the pitiful wretch who had damned us all to this cosmic cruelty. He met my gaze for the fraction of a second, and in his dead, sunken eyes I saw the briefest flicker of understanding. The harsh fluorescent lighting cast harsh shadows across Warren's face as I entered the sterile visitation room. Even in his rumpled prison fatigues, the air of aristocratic disdain clung to him like a bad stench. For a long moment, he simply stared at me through the reinforced glass partition separating us, unblinking, studying me with the same cold calculation I remembered from my youth. I met his gaze unflinchingly, refusing to be the first to break the tense silence. Let him soak in the reality of his new existence, brought low and caged like the rabid animal he truly was. Finally, a sneer curled his lip as he leaned forward with mocking condescension. "Well, well, the prodigal daughter deigns to visit her incarcerated father. To what do I owe this?" His eyes raked over me with undisguised contempt. "Honor?" "Can it, Warren?" I said flatly. Using his first name felt like forcing down a mouthful of glass shards, but I'd be damned if I validated his sense of patriarchal entitlement any longer. "We both know I'm not here for some Hallmark reunion." A flicker of surprise broke through his smug facade as I slid a bulging manila envelope through the document slot before taking a seat. "What's this?" he demanded, snatching it up and rifling through the sheaf of papers with narrowed eyes. "Everything you're going to sign over to me," I stated, leaning back in the plasteel chair. "Bank accounts, property deeds, overseas assets, the full Irving family inheritance you cheated my mother out of." His brows furrowed in confusion for a heartbeat. analyzing every loophole and angle like a master tactician. But as the enormity of the demand sank in, his head slowly lifted, mouth agape in stunned offense. "You ungrateful little," Warren exploded, spittle flecking the glass. "After everything your whore mother put me through, you think you get to bleed me for." "I'd tread very carefully with your next words if I were you," I said in a low, dangerous tone. Despite the barrier between us, every muscle in my body tensed as if bracing for a physical confrontation. "Because I swear on my life, if you sully Mom's memory again, I'll make sure your remaining years in this shithole are spent in solitary lockdown with the gangbangers and skinheads." The overt threat hung in the air like a guillotine blade waiting to drop. For a long, tense moment, I could actually see Warren's mind churning, wrestling with the instinct to lash out as he had so often to maintain his domineering control. Finally, some deeper, baser self-preservation instinct seemed to kick in. He drew in a long, shuddering breath through flared nostrils and leaned back, some of the blustery defiance seeping out of his wiry frame. "You just couldn't let it go, could you?" he murmured, narrowed eyes boring into me. "No matter how much I tried to distance myself from your nonsense, you just had to keep picking at that scab." A flicker of that patented wounded indignation armored his features once more, as though I were the petulant child making unreasonable demands. After all I sacrificed. "Don't," I cut him off with a curt slash of my hand. The reminder of his masterful gaslighting sparked a searing flare of rage in my chest. "Don't you dare play the martyr with me again. Not after what you put Mom through. Not after leaving us to rot in squalor while you built another family." I was shaking now, every ounce of grief and torment I'd endured crashing over me in waves of fury. Gripping the table's edge, I leaned in with bared teeth. "Sign it all over, you remorseless son of a bitch. Every last damn cent that should have gone to giving Mom a comfortable life while she suffered. I want it all as restitution for the lifetime of lies and anguish you inflicted on us." Warren opened his mouth, doubtless to spew more indignant rationalizations, but after meeting my blazing stare, whatever retort he had died on his lips, for a solitary instant, I saw something shift behind his eyes, a flicker of self-awareness at the profound ugliness of his life's path. Without a word, he reached for the pen and began mechanically signing each page, every flourished scrawl, feeling like a death knell for the facade he'd spent decades constructing. As the very last signature dried, he slid the stack towards me with a trembling hand, anger and resignation etched into the deep crevasses of his face. "There," he rasped. "You've salted the earth of my entire existence for a few million in blood money. Satisfied, you miserable, vindictive harpy?" My lip curled in one final snarl of defiant contempt. "Believe me, old man, if I could reduce you to living in a cardboard box under an overpass, I would, but this is the next best thing." Snatching up the documents, I pivoted on my heel and stormed from that wretched room without a backward glance. Let the cretinous bastard wallow in the ruination of all his efforts. As far as I was concerned, he had ceased to exist as anything more than a cautionary tale for the consequences of unchecked deception. The clouds had finally parted, the shackles of that sordid family legacy falling away to leave me unshackled and reborn. 6 months later, the muggy summer air clung like a damp shroud as I stepped from the sleek town car. Pausing on the freshly poured concrete path, I cast a sweeping gaze across the pristine grounds, taking in every inch of the newly renovated estate. What had once been a monument to excess and depravity was now a sanctuary, a living memorial to the damage wrought by greed and betrayal. My mouth curved in a small, satisfied smile. "Not bad, huh?" Maya's voice drifted over my shoulder as she emerged from the back seat, squinting against the midday glare. I felt her eyes studying me with open admiration. "I still can't believe you pulled all this off, Sloane. Turning that decrepit palace into, well, this." She whistled lowly, shaking her head. "Your mom would be damn proud." A flicker of wistfulness shadowed my features as I trailed a fingertip along the sun-warmed sandstone exterior. That's the idea, to create something good and just from the ashes of so much ugliness. The anguished memories of those final, bitter years battling Warren's sadistic narcissism threatened to swell up like a rogue wave. But the calm, meditative trickle of the koi pond nearby helped keep them at bay, a reminder that this place was so much more than just an extravagant manor. No, Avalon Springs was intended to be a true refuge, as much for the soul as the body. A pastoral estate dedicated to housing and rehabilitating families devastated by the same treacheries my own had endured. My hand instinctively drifted to the pendant of the Ouroboros encircling my neck, an emblem of the cycle of rebirth and renewal that I had finally broken with my father's downfall. The sick spiral of madness gripping our bloodline was severed the day I claimed what was rightfully ours. Now it was time to begin anew, to forge a legacy that would uplift rather than destroy. You know, when you first came to me ranting about taking your dad down, I never expected this level of symbolism. Maya's teasing lilt fractured my pensive reverie. Has this whole Buddha-esque thing been your game plan all along? Shooting her a sidelong smirk, I started down the tree-lined path towards the heavy oak doors, their rich stain gleaming proudly in the sunlight. Only someone as pragmatic as you would complain about getting gifted a mansion, Renzi. Hey, I'm not complaining, she protested with a laugh, easily falling into step beside me. Just stating facts. You went from woman scorn to weird cult leader vibes. I shoved her playfully. Oh, shut up, you worked just as hard on this place as I did. Well, duh, one of us needed to keep you from going full Nietzsche Übermensch. Sloane? The shocked voice jolted us both into silence as a figure emerged from the shadows of the colonnade up ahead. Lucas paused mid-stride, eyes wide with disbelieving recognition. For several beats, a weighty stillness suffocated the air between us, laden with the emotional shrapnel left in his father's wake. It had been over half a year since I'd last seen my estranged half-brother in the aftermath of the SWAT raid implosion. Despite my initial instinct to feel threatened by his unexpected presence, something in his raw, open expression disarmed me. Hey, I managed at last, offering him a tentative nod. Nice to see you up and about. A strained, watery chuckle escaped Lucas's lips as he swiped an errant hand across his eyes. Yeah, you too. We drifted closer, the air rife with unspoken questions and revelations neither of us seemed willing to broach first. Until, with a visible steadying of resolve, Lucas broke the standoff. Look, I know things got crazy towards the end there, with my dad and, well, everything. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. I'm not going to pretend I understand even half of what was going on, but I wanted to thank you for, keeping me out of it as best you could. Something warm and unfamiliar blossomed in my chest at his earnest gratitude. Through the roller coaster of vendettas and personal catharsis, I had nearly forgotten Lucas's innocence amidst the collateral fallout. You didn't deserve to get caught up in that shitstorm, I said gruffly, quirking a rueful smile. No kid should have to suffer for their parents' sins. He regarded me steadily, as if searching for any lingering hints of malice or deception he'd come to associate with our paternal lineage. At last, seeming to detect sincerity, Lucas nodded. Sounds like you took that lesson to heart with this place. He swept an appraising glance over the tranquil grounds and stately edifice. What's the deal? Some kind of support center? Pride swelled within me as I outlined my vision for Avalon Springs, a long-term residence and vocational training program for families devastated by financial crimes. How I aimed to provide a fresh start free from the demons of their pasts, while also equipping them with the tools to rebuild stable, self-sufficient lives. It's a noble pursuit, Lucas said at last, clear-eyed admiration flickering over his features. Honestly, I think you hit the nail on the head, creating something good to counter all the bad our dad unleashed on the world. A fragile understanding seemed to blossom between us in that moment. For the first time, I saw him as more than just a reminder of Warren's perfidy. A kindred spirit, fueled by the gift of perspective to break the cycles that had nearly destroyed us both. You know, I said impulsively, studying him with a rekindled sense of purpose, this place is gonna need all the help it can get staying afloat. Don't suppose you'd be interested in getting involved? Could use an extra set of hands around here. The surprise registered plainly on Lucas's face as the weight of my offer sank in, but it was soon replaced by a bright, boyish grin that erased years of turmoil in an instant. You know what? I think I'd like that, he replied with a firm nod of acceptance. For the first time in a long while, I felt the lingering shards of resentment and bitterness towards him dissolve away. displaced by the tentative stirrings of a bond forged in the ashes of our fractured upbringing. As Maya and I led Lucas through the ornate double doors into Avalon's embrace, I felt a profound sense of lightness, of closure. This was it, the start of a new chapter, unshackled from the burdens of the past and burning with the possibility of a hard-won redemption. Though the road here had been brutal beyond measure, stripping me down to the bones, at last I felt reborn, weightless, free to soar towards the horizons of a life truly worth living. "Rowan, we need to talk." The firm tone in Jamie's voice made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I turned to face my ex with a guarded expression, my mind instantly going to our son Casey. Jamie's eyes were cold as stone. "I want full custody of Casey." The words hung heavy in the air, a merciless blow that stole my breath away. I stared at Jamie in disbelief, desperately searching his face for any trace of a joke or misunderstanding. But his jaw was set, his demeanor brooking no argument. "What? No? You can't be serious," I managed, my throat tightening. Custody had never been an issue between us before. Why now, after all these years of me being a devoted parent? Jamie's lip curled with contempt. "I can give Casey a better life than you ever could on your measly salaries from those dead-end jobs." White-hot anger blazed within me, singeing away my shock. How dare he belittle the sacrifices I'd made to support Casey? I worked tirelessly, taking on multiple jobs to ensure he never went without, to give him the stable life Jamie and I had promised. "You smug son of a bitch," I spat, fists clenching. "Casey is my whole world. You're delusional if you think I'll let you take him from me so easily." Jamie met my fury with an infuriatingly dismissive scoff. "We'll see what the judge has to say. With my resources, this won't even be a fight." He gave a thin smile that made my skin crawl before turning on his heel and storming off. Left seething in his wake, my mind raced. What had prompted this sudden custody bid? Could it be related to the inheritance from my great-aunt that had recently come through? Cold tendrils of dread snaked through me at the thought of Jamie's potential motivations. I was shaking with a potent mix of rage and terror at the prospect of losing Casey. The legal system could be precarious. What if the courts deemed Jamie's wealthy lifestyle as more suitable for providing for our son? I couldn't allow that to happen, not when I had fought through every obstacle to give Casey the life he deserved. No, I wouldn't back down without a vicious battle. If Jamie thought I would roll over because he out-earned me, he was severely mistaken. I would fight for Casey with every fiber of my being, make him rue the day he came after my family. There was no choice. I had to find a way to stop Jamie before his ploy turned my world upside down. My chest ached with the thought of Casey being torn from me. I wouldn't let Jamie rip our lives apart for his selfish whims, not while I still drew breath. My jaw hardened with grim resolve. No matter what lies or actions Jamie resorted to, I would match them tooth and nail. When it came to protecting Casey, I would do whatever it took to emerge victorious. This was an unforgivable line Jamie had crossed, and there would be a reckoning. I called Taylor, the razor-sharp family law attorney, before Jamie even made it home that night. Her gravelly voice crackled over the line as I explained the situation through gritted teeth. "That bastard is coming after Casey because of the inheritance money," I snarled. "He couldn't care less about being a parent." There was a weighty pause before Taylor responded. "I had a feeling this was about the trust fund. Don't worry, Rowan. If Jamie wants a fight, I'll bury him under so much legal debris, he'll wish he never hatched this ridiculous scheme." A spark of hope flickered in my chest, tempering my fury for a moment. "You think we can stop him?" "Absolutely. We just need to dismantle his case piece by piece. I have a few ideas already," Taylor said with conviction. "First, we request all his financial records to establish motive." Over the next few weeks, the bitter battle intensified rapidly. I discovered the true extent of Jamie's deceit. He had leveraged the failing family restaurant to the brink of bankruptcy, leaving him in a desperate situation. The inherited money was a lifeline for him to maintain his ego and reckless spending habits. "Not a chance you're using my child to dig yourself out of the hole you created." I spat at Jamie across the negotiation table, Taylor's steadying hand on my shoulder. Jamie's eyes glittered with malice. "Is that what you think, Rowan?" Maybe Casey would be better off with someone who can actually provide, instead of that hovel you keep him in. My blood boiled, but Taylor cut in smoothly. My client has established a stable, loving home for Casey, which is more than can be said for you, Mr. Reynolds, or should I say Mr. Chapter 11. She slid a file of his debt records across the table. Jamie's face went red, sputtering in wordless outrage. It was deeply satisfying to see his arrogant mask shatter in the face of Taylor's relentless disassembling of his falsehoods. Despite the streams of vile accusations and personal attacks Jamie hurled my way, I refused to budge an inch. Each rounded fired only strengthened my resolve. Nothing would make me abandon Casey. Not while I was still breathing. Unfortunately for Jamie, his underhanded tactics soon came to light thanks to Taylor's ruthless investigative skills. The court wasn't impressed by his transparent grabs for money and fabricated narratives about my incompetence as a parent. Jamie grew increasingly flustered and desperate as the case progressed. One day before a hearing, Taylor warned me with a grim look. "Jamie has hired a private investigator to dig into your personal life. Be prepared for anything, Rowan." I clenched my jaw, having expected such wretched behavior. "He can try whatever he wants. I have nothing to hide. My focus is Casey, always has been." Taylor nodded firmly, and will make sure the court understands that crystal clear. As the custody hearing loomed, I braced for the worst, but my conscience remained clear. Whatever mud Jamie tried to fling, it wouldn't stick. Not when I had sacrificed so much for the well-being of my son. If losing was inevitable for Jamie, I would make sure he paid a heavy price for his despicable, selfish actions. Casey's life was not a bargaining chip to be played. I would fight until my dying breath to protect the loved I cherished most. As the court proceedings dragged on, Jamie's desperation escalated to unsettling new heights. He began lashing out at me publicly, no doubt hoping to sway opinion by painting me as an unfit parent. "Oh look, there goes Rowan, the devoted single parent who chooses dead-end jobs over spending time with their own child," he sneered loudly at a community event, ensuring his venom carried across the park. I felt dozens of eyes burning into me, but refused to show weakness by reacting. Taylor had drilled it into me to never engage, no matter how vile Jamie's taunts became. Thankfully, our community wasn't easily fooled. A group of parents from Casey's school, including my closest friend Angela, swiftly came to my defense. "That's rich coming from someone who hasn't bothered showing up for any of Casey's events in years," Angela shot back fiercely. "We've all seen how Rowan bends over backwards as a single parent." Jamie flushed an ugly crimson, finally skulking away after failing to goad a response from me. I caught Casey's eye from across the park, and my heart clenched at the pain etched on his face from witnessing that ugly display. The nights grew longer as legal fees mounted from fighting Jamie's scorched earth campaign. My work shifts had to increase to keep the bills at bay, leaving me with little downtime. I longed for a break, but persevered knowing it was all for Casey's well-being. At my wits' end one evening after a double shift, there was an unexpected knock at my door. I was overwhelmed to find Angela and a few other parents with armfuls of home-cooked meals. "We know things have been brutal lately, so we've formed a meal train to lighten your load where we can," Angela said simply, wrapping me in a tight hug. I could only nod wordlessly, unable to find the words to express the depths of my gratitude at their kindness and support. After living on granola bars, the smell of hot food made my eyes water. It was a poignant reminder that while Jamie attempted to tear my world down, I wasn't alone. That night, I tucked a sleeping Casey in, undisturbed for once without me having to be at work. My eyes traced the contours of his cherubic face, my heart swelling with profound love and the determination to never let Jamie remove this precious presence from my life. The tide began to turn, as Taylor uncovered more financial improprieties in Jamie's records. He had massively understated his debts and overhead, no doubt hoping it would look more viable for him to pursue custody. At our next court appearance, Taylor systematically dismantled the stability Jamie professed to offer Casey if he were granted custody. "Your client's business has been delinquent on rent for over 6 months and has an unpaid tax lien, does it not?" Taylor grilled Jamie's lawyer, barely suppressing her disdain. Jamie squirmed in his seat, shooting me a withering glare that I deflected with stony indifference. For too long he had believed his money and status could insulate him. No more. Mr. Reynolds is grasping at straws, trying to leverage his child for money due to his own sloppy business mismanagement. Taylor warned the judge. Does that sound like a parent prioritizing their child's well-being? When the judge's flinty eyes bored into Jamie, I saw the first flickers of doubt and fear cross the man's smug veneer. For once, the gathering dark clouds appeared to be swirling around Jamie instead of me as the case reached its pivotal stages. But I took no pleasure in it. My sole focus was safeguarding Casey's future. Whatever the personal or financial cost, there could be no surrender. Not when protecting my son's welfare was the purest cause I would ever fight for until my dying breath. The escalating custody battle was weighing heavily on Casey. I could see it in the slump of his small shoulders, the dimming light in his eyes. My heart ached for the toll this was taking, for the childhood innocence being chipped away by the unrelenting adult hostilities. No matter how much I tried to shield him, to maintain a sense of normalcy, Casey wasn't immune to the tensions slowly strangling our household. Jamie's barrage of attacks and malicious rumor-mongering could only be deflected for so long. One evening, when I dragged myself home from the hospital well past midnight, a bone-deep dread seized me at the darkened windows and deathly silence enveloping the house. "Casey?" I called out, my voice breaking the unearthly stillness as I dumped my bag. No response. Panic rapidly constricted my chest as I tore through the rooms. The bed was empty, covers flung haphazardly aside. Casey's treasured stuffed elephant lay discarded on the floor, staring up at me almost accusingly. I frantically punched in Taylor's number with trembling hands. "He's gone," I stammered when she picked up, barely holding it together. "Casey's gone." To her credit, Taylor remained calm as I spiraled, grounding me long enough to organize a search party to comb the neighborhood and alert the authorities. Within the hour, concerned neighbors and friends fanned out, calling Casey's name into the inky blackness between street lamps while cop cruisers prowled the vicinity. Part of me viciously hoped this was Jamie's doing, that he had taken things to this level to regain leverage over me. Because if not, the alternative, that Casey had reached his breaking point from the chaos and run off alone, was too unbearable to accept. Dawn was breaking before a blessedly familiar voice pierced the fearful hush that had descended. "Over here! I found him!" Angela yelled, cradling a trembling, tear-stained Casey. I ran like a woman possessed, skidding to my knees and enveloping my son in a crushing embrace, fear and relief crashing over me in waves. Thank God he was all right. For a few harrowing hours of frantic darkness, I thought I had lost the anchor of my entire world. Casey mumbled apologies into my shoulder between hitching sobs. I pulled back, gripping his small face in my hands to look him square in the eyes. "Don't you ever scare me like that again, you hear me? I can't lose you, Case." My own tears were flowing freely now, the terror of imagining life without him nearly paralyzing. "I just want this to be over," he cried, voice tiny and impossibly weary for one so young. "Dad's being so mean, and I don't understand why." White-hot fury lanced through me at Jamie, at the emotional wreckage he was leaving with his selfish, underhanded attacks. I crushed Casey to my chest, whispering fierce reassurances that it would be okay, that I would never abandon him to that vile man's clutches. All eyes turned as Taylor strode purposefully towards us, her face carved from granite. She looked down at Casey's crumpled form, then slowly raised her gaze to meet Jamie's, where he hovered on the periphery. A charged silence stretched between them, thick as a bowstring about to snap. Taylor's voice cut through the tension like a whip crack. "Your campaign of terror ends today, Mr. Reynolds. That was the last sickening stunt I will allow." If looks could kill, Jamie would have combusted from the sheer loathing blazing in Taylor's eyes. My own rage roiled at a fever pitch, the instinct to lash out nearly overpowering, until I felt Casey tremble against me, a heart-rending reminder of who needed protecting most. In that moment, I knew any rule hadn't been just bent. It had been obliterated. Taylor was done playing professional niceties with this disgraceful excuse for a human being. All barrels were being unleashed. And though it both terrified and gratified me, I silently vowed to let the mask drop too, and match any brutality if that's what it took to shield my son. For Casey, I would wage mutually assured destruction against Jamie if needed. There would be no more half measures. Either Jamie backed down immediately, or I would mercilessly, remorselessly, grind every last one of his depraved ambitions into dust. In the aftermath of Casey's terrifying disappearance, an uneasy truce settled over the custody battle. Outwardly, at least, because behind the scenes, Taylor had gone nuclear in her determination to finally bury Jamie once and for all. "We're going scorched earth from here on out," she informed me one evening, a feral glint in her eyes. "I've got a new line of attack all lined up to decimate what's left of his case." A hard knot formed in my gut. After the stunt Jamie had pulled with Casey, part of me wanted to hear Taylor's plan, to have her lay out exactly how the killing blow would be delivered to that depraved, egomaniacal monster. But another part, the part that still remembered the guy I had once loved and built a family with, that part felt sick over the prospect of utterly destroying him, no matter how vile his actions had become. What would be left of my own humanity if I went along with Taylor's ambush? Could I go through with it and still look Casey in the eyes? These turbulent thoughts must have shown on my face, because Taylor's expression softened slightly. "Listen, Rowan, I know this is an impossible situation, but he brought this maelstrom upon himself by using Casey as a pawn. You only wanted to protect your child." I rubbed my temples wearily. I know. It's just, I can't help but wonder if there's any shred of decency buried in there, you know? Like, should we be taking the highway instead of going full nuclear? Taylor fixed me with a level stare. "You want my honest opinion?" Jamie disavowed any right to human decency the moment he tried to use his own flesh and blood for financial gain. Her words hung heavily between us, undisguised disgust twisting her features. Suddenly, Taylor pushed a folder across the table towards me. "Which is why I think you need to see this, so there's no room for doubt left." Hesitantly, I thumbed open the file, ice prickling along my spine when I recognized Jamie's looping scrawl detailing an elaborate fraud scheme to siphon money from Casey's trust fund. The pages heavily outlined how he could bypass oversight by attaining sole custody. There were calculations for ensuring maximum payout, notes about manipulating legal loopholes. It was all there in terrifying clarity, leaving no ambiguity to Jamie's depravity. I felt bile rising as the full extent of his betrayal really hit. My head swam with horrifying visions of Casey forever scarred and disillusioned by this monstrous revelation about his dad. A piece of me still loved the man I had once built a life with, had a child with, but that man was gone, devoured by greed and self-interest. There was no redemption to be found, only a vile, grasping husk masquerading as a father. Unshakable resolution overcame me then. No more attempts to understand, to appeal to morality or consciences Jamie clearly did not possess. Taylor was right. He had long forfeited any pretense of humanity with his contemptible actions. Fixing Taylor with a steely look, I slid the file back across the table with a decisive thud. "Do what you have to. Use this to dismember every shred of his false credibility in court. I was a fool for doubting the depths of his villainy." She gave a grim nod, squaring her shoulders as if girding for war. "I knew when I saw this, you'd want to bring out the heavy artillery. We can avoid dragging Casey through the mud. Let me construct an airtight case and present it all in one concentrated legal salvo. He won't know what hit him." "Good. Do it." My tone was resolute, unflinching. Any last traces of sympathy I'd harbored for Jamie had been scourged. The hardened dad inside emerged, fiercely determined to remove this toxic malignancy from our lives forever. After glimpsing the black abyss of his treachery, I knew there was no going halfway against Jamie. For Casey's sake, he had to be rendered a complete, inarguable threat, once and for all. There would be no more hesitation, no flickers of doubt preventing me from safeguarding my family from this virulent scourge of a man at all costs, no matter how sickening the methods required. Mutually assured destruction it would be then. I would match his repugnance tit for tat until the end, if that's what it took. There was no line Jamie wouldn't cross, so I would have to be prepared to undercut him at every turn to protect Casey. As the final custody hearing loomed, I found myself yearning for the day when I could finally exhale, freeing us from this nightmare by any means necessary. No price was too high, no tactic too severe, to guarantee Casey's well-being would never again be jeopardized by that mercenary, diabolical shell of a man. The tension was thick enough to choke on as we filed into the courthouse for the long-awaited custody hearing. Jamie shot me a withering glare, no doubt still stewing over the damning evidence Taylor had presented. I met his gaze levelly, refusing to show an ounce of fear or hesitation. Not after everything that had transpired, not after being forced to realize there was no shred of the man I once loved left inside him anymore. Casey clutched my hand tightly as we took our seats, looking up at me with those soulful eyes that still haunted my dreams after his disappearance. I gave his fingers a reassuring squeeze, flashing what I hoped was a confident smile. This had to end today, one way or another. Taylor didn't waste any time once the proceedings commenced. With a curt nod to the court reporter, she strode to the front and began methodically dismantling every pillar of Jamie's case without preamble. Your Honor, we have incontrovertible proof that Mr. Reynolds' sole motivation in pursuing custody is financial gain, which he intended to acquire through fraudulent misappropriation of his child's inheritance. Thick files documenting the fraud scheme were entered into evidence as Taylor laid out the calculated transunion in painstaking detail. With each fresh revelation, color drained from Jamie's face, rendering him more haggard and corpse-like. I felt Casey tense beside me as the sordid realities of his father's ploys were dissected in open court. The shock and pain radiating off of him in waves was a lead anchors around my heart. But I pushed forward, keeping my own expression inscrutable. He needed to see me standing resolute. Whichever way you try to twist it, Mr. Reynolds' own documented intentions show him viewing his child not as a human being to nurture, but as a mere means to an illicit financial windfall. Taylor spat with undisguised contempt. Jamie's lawyer jumped up to object, desperation soaking his sweat-stained collar, but the judge waved him down, fixing Jamie with a look of unadulterated disgust. I've seen all I need to see here today. The evidence of your client's corrupt intentions and utter disregard for his child's well-being is overwhelming. We'd already won, and everyone in that courtroom knew it. But Taylor was relentless, twisting the dagger with an avalanche of corroborating evidence, financial records, testimony from the community about my dedication as a parent, and finally, Casey's own words. Clutching the arms of his chair with trembling hands, he looked at Jamie with an expression that pierced me to my soul. It was one of bottomless sorrow, but also revulsion at the depths of betrayal, of being used as a pawn instead of loved as a child. I want to stay with my mom, Casey stated in a wavering voice. She just wants to protect me. My dad, I don't even know him anymore. Those delicate words lanced through the pall of tension, silencing Jamie's lawyer and all his futile objections. In that moment, I wanted nothing more than to sweep Casey up and spirit him away from the debris field that had once been his family. The judge's weary sigh echoed through the courtroom as he delivered his final ruling, awarding sole custody to me in no uncertain terms. I couldn't even savor the relief and victory. My focus could only zero in on Casey, hunched beside me like a broken marionette. Jamie wouldn't go quietly, of course. His voice shredded with anguished rage as the final order was declared. You self-righteous bitch! You've destroyed this family, I hope you... The vicious tirade was cut off by a thundering bang of the judge's gavel. That's enough from you, Mr. Reynolds. The court has issued its final decision, and you will abide by it. Your actions have been utterly reprehensible, and you'll be lucky if more serious charges aren't brought after this disgraceful scheme. And just like that, it was over in an anticlimactic rush. Jamie slumped back in his seat, mouth still moving in silent curses. I couldn't even work up the effort to feel smug or victorious, only a bone-deep wariness. Beside me, Casey was trembling, shoulders shaking with silent tears. Without a word, I pulled him tight against me and just held him while he wept, uncaring of who saw the tattered remains of my family strewn about the courtroom. In that moment, I felt only profound relief that we had survived Jamie's poisonous reign, his cancerous influence now finally excised from our lives forever. Finally, I could begin trying to mend the priceless bond he'd taken a sledgehammer to. As for what lay next, I didn't have the faintest clue. All I knew was that we were free. In the days following the custody ruling, an uneasy quiet settled over our household. Jamie was finally out of our lives for good, but there were still tremors from the seismic disruption his malice had caused. Casey withdrew into himself, haunted by the harsh truth that had come to light about his father. The disillusionment was so palpable, it hung over him like a weighted blanket. I ached to see that bright, vibrant spark extinguished from his eyes. We treaded lightly in those initial weeks, both still processing the emotional trauma only now given space to breathe. There was relief, yes, but also a profound emptiness where the turmoil had previously existed. Jamie, predictably, didn't go quietly into that good night. Threats of appeals and even more vicious personal attacks came raining down from his side. But they rang hollow after the final court smackdown, desperate gasps of a dying man. Instead, it was Taylor who broke the fragile peace with some surprising news. The DA's office is strongly considering criminal fraud charges against your ex for the custody scheme, she informed me one afternoon over coffee. I nearly dropped my mug, staring at her in shock. Part of me had been so focused on winning the custody battle that I failed to consider any further legal ramifications for Jamie. Seeing my alarm, Taylor held up a placating hand. I know, it's a cannonball out of nowhere, but the evidence we presented opened up a whole Pandora's box of financial crimes and very likely jail time for your ex. My head spun. The idea of Jamie potentially being imprisoned was almost too staggering to contemplate, not after being immersed in his toxicity for so long. I don't know what to say, I stammered out finally. Does Casey need to be involved at all? He's already been put through so much because of that bastard. A grim look crossed Taylor's face. Unfortunately, yes, they'll likely want his testimony if charges are filed. The DA will try to minimize things, but Jamie's schemes directly involved Casey as a victim too. White-hot rage flashed through me at the thought of subjecting my son to any more torment related to Jamie's sociopathic actions. He'd already been through enough destructive turmoil, forced to face shattering revelations about his own parent. At the same time, a tiny, vindictive part of me murmured that it was only right for Jamie to face the highest accountability possible for his sickening crimes against his own family. Days later, the call came that charges were indeed moving forward against Jamie for fraud, embezzlement, and a slew of other financial improprieties related to the custody case. The DA's office wanted to meet with Casey to gently explain the situation and how his involvement would proceed. I considered denying them, taking the Salem head-in-the-sand approach to shield my son, but Casey, bless his brave heart, made the choice for me. I want to do it, he stated with a quiet fortitude that both inspired and broke my heart. Dad has to finally face everything he did the right way. So we went, stomaching the legalese explanations and the process staging for Casey to recount some of the turmoil and fear Jamie's skullduggery had woven into our lives. And through it all, Casey held firm, unflinching in his resolve to hold his father to account. That strength, that resilience in the face of such profound injustice and betrayal, it was almost transcendent to witness. This child, my child, who had been so fragile and wounded, was somehow now the pillar upholding us both. When it finally came for the prosecution to request an in-person meeting with Jamie, I feared Casey may falter, shrinking from the impending confrontation with the man who had tormented our family. Instead, he stunned us all by looking the prosecutor dead in the eye and saying, "I want to be there when you talk to him. He needs to see the consequences for how he treated us." On the day itself, I was a wreck waiting outside the cold, sterile conference room. But Casey remained stoic, tome and focused as the prosecutor and I watched through the two-way mirror. Jamie was momentarily jolted from his usual bravado when faced with Casey's unflinching presence. Maybe it was a fleeting glimpse of recognition for the damage his selfish actions had wrought. "Case, son, please. You have to understand, I did what I had to for this family," he pled, the words sounding hollow even to my ears. But Casey was unswayed, leveling his father with a maturity and composure that surely withered whatever shred of soul Jamie had left. "No, Dad," he said evenly, "this was only about you and your greed, not the family." That simple truth, delivered without malice or anger, seemed to deflate Jamie like a popped balloon. Instead of belligerent rage or indignant sputtering, he simply lowered his head in something akin to shame. As the investigators began walking Jamie out in cuffs, he turned to Casey one final time, agony scoring his features. How? He started brokenly. How can you ever forgive me? For several beats, the weight of that leaden question hovered between father and son, a valley too wide to cross. Finally, Casey spoke in a voice infinitely sad but resolved. I don't know if I can yet, but maybe one day if you finally face what you've done. And with that, the broken shadow of Jamie Reynolds was led away, Casey watching impassively. He disappeared from view. With Jamie's poisonous presence finally excised, a startling calm descended over our lives. Like the fragile quiet after a Category 5 hurricane has finally blown itself out to sea. Casey and I tread carefully those first few weeks, still adjusting to the lack of chaos, of not having to brace for Jamie's next despicable maneuver. Our guards were perpetually up, nerves taut as high wires anticipating the other shoe to drop. But gradually that wariness melted away into something resembling peace. An alien concept, after being embroiled in such psychological warfare for so long. Of course, some scars don't simply disappear overnight. I caught Casey staring off wistfully at times, no doubt wrestling with the shattering disillusionment about his father's true nature. My heart broke watching those village clouds pass over his eyes. But he was resilient, certainly more so than his battered mother. With Jamie neutralized, it was Casey who helped me to shake off the suffocating miasma of fear and embark on the road to healing. With my hostage salary no longer being pillaged by legal fees, I was finally able to pursue a little dream, opening up my own small bakery in our quaint downtown neighborhood. The community rallied around in full force, with a crowdfunding campaign ensuring I could get the space up and running. I'll never forget the look of pride glowing from Casey when he cut the ceremonial opening ribbon. A moment of pure, uncomplicated joy, the first of many to counterbalance the anguish we had endured. Over the first few months, the bakery became a sanctuary not just for my entrepreneurial spirit, but for Casey too. He befriended the elderly couple who owned the bookstore next door, spending hours with them listening to colorful tales and learning comforting new recipes. I remember poking my head in one lazy Saturday afternoon to find Casey sitting on Mrs. Langley's floral sofa, chirping away as she patiently showed him how to knit. The simple peace of that moment will forever be seared into my soul. Mr. Langley, bless his wit, caught my eye as I watched Casey's lesson. He gave me an exaggerated wink before mock whispering, "Should have known that boy would take to the domestic arts like a duck to water with you as his mama." My cheeks flushed at the tender scene, so overwhelmed that I could only muster a watery smile and murmur, "Better him than me, that's for sure." As the bakery grew into a beloved local hotspot, our new normal took root and blossomed. Without the specter of Jamie's toxicity poisoning our days, I was able to cherish each milestone and disorder from Casey. His first student council election, where he gave an impassioned speech about protecting the little guys. The drama club production of Our Town, where he stole every heart in the audience with his earnest portrayal of the stage manager. Even just the quieter, cherished moments, like him presenting me with a hand-knit scarf one chilly December evening, slightly misshapen and lopsided as all guided love, but perfect in its imperfections. With each new memory minted, another metaphorical tile was laid, forming the rock-solid foundation our future world be built upon. One strengthened by our shared triumphs over adversity, by the powerful lodestar of our familial love fortified through the crucible. When the cooking classes and baking demonstrations I hosted at the shop started generating some local media buzz, part of me felt a flicker of petty satisfaction. Not just at proving the self-sustaining life I'd built despite Jamie's vile machinations, but at glimpsing how deliciously it must have stung his ego. Still, I never reveled in that gratification for long, merely acknowledged it brusquely before turning my focus to what mattered most, savoring our hard-earned serenity while planting the seeds for future joys. Because in the end, watching Casey gradually blossom into a resilient, kind-hearted young man was the finest validation I would ever need. With each assured step he took, it repudiated Jamie's sneering assertion that I was unfit to parent. We had risen, tempered by fire instead of broken by it. Our bond, our family unit of two, inevitably became stronger through the grueling test of perseverance, and the sacrifices, the suffering, it all dissolved into an insignificant abyss eclipsed by the radiant light of our legacy persevering. As midnight inevitably fell on Casey's high school graduation night, we stood in the warmly lit kitchen amid confetti and celebratory chaos. He wrapped me in a tight, lingering hug, whispering, "Thank you for never giving up on me, on us. I know the road wasn't easy, but we made it through, together." Tears of profound pride and love blurred my vision, reducing the chiseled young man before me into the bright-eyed little boy I had fought tooth and nail to protect from harm. Voice choked with emotion, I whispered back the words that encompassed my entire universe. "That's all that will ever matter, Casey. You and me withstanding any onslaught as long as we have each other. Nothing and no one will ever make me forsake that, I promise."